The
John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. John Anik and Kenny Florian.
I love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole. They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John Anik and Kenny Florian.
Gosh, KenFlo, that Frank Mir, Todd Duffy call just feels like a lifetime ago.
It was.
But in some respects, it feels like just yesterday. Just a microcosm for how quickly life goes. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy Veterans Day. It is Monday, November 11, 2024. Thanks for checking back in. It is episode 524 of the Anik and Florian podcast, and it comes to you live on a day on which, KenFlo, we honor members of the United States Armed Forces, of course, those who have served, those presently serving. And I don't know if it was on Fox or ESPN, but they had a pretty powerful special, and it featured a lot of veterans, some of whom greatly appreciate when you walk up to them and say, thank you for your service. Others would like to hear anything but. And I did think it was sort of interesting to see whichever sports network it was, that I apologize for not knowing. I was multitasking. I was doing dishes, childcare, cleaning up. But some veterans would like you to say, how was your service? You know, did you bury any friends in the service? Where did you serve? Right. So I guess don't be afraid to extend the conversation, you know, with all these people who, you know, did what maybe guys like me weren't brave enough to do, or whatever the reason was, right? But Kenny, certainly there should be many days during the calendar year on which we acknowledge and recognize these amazing people that allow us to, you know, do what we do.
100%. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for them and their service. And you know, I have found, I've talked about this all the time, of how much inspiration and motivation I have found from our veterans over the years. You know, even from before, when I started, I was basically going to make one of two moves. It was either going to be join the military or go into professional fighting. I knew I wanted to do one of those things.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they do for us, what they have done for us, all the sacrifices they made. And, yeah, I think one of those things, though, to your point about, it's kind of like when someone passes away and you say condolences, you know, it's like, how do you sum up something like that, of saying thank you for everything that they sacrificed? But absolutely, they should be acknowledged. No question.
Well, to those who have served, just buckets of appreciation for whatever that's worth, for your sacrifice, and for, you know, everything that you sort of devoted in terms of your life to the American cause. I'm wearing the Stars and Stripes today. As you can see, our One More Sleep design, johnanik.com, promo code One More Sleep, 15% off. But we have a lot of good things coming your way today. This is our full-fledged UFC 309 recap. We are very excited about that. The greatest of all time, John Jones, back in Madison Square Garden this weekend. He's never fought in New York State. Never mind. Madison Square Garden. So very excited to see Johnny Bones and Stipe Miocic back. And we are going to talk to a medical cannabis doctor, June Chin. We will talk to UFC bantamweight contender Aiemann Zahabi. As promised, I didn't realize when Aiemann Zahabi got his ranking, KenFlo, that meant that Dominic Cruz, ceremoniously or unceremoniously, was removed from the rankings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
I was sort of thinking about a potential fight between Aiemann Zahabi and Dominic Cruz, and then I looked to see what Dom's ranking was, and I noticed that he no longer had one. But great to be with everybody live on Veterans Day. I guess if we can do anything for soldiers and doctors and those who have served, it's to provide free content, which the Anik and Florian podcast will always be. Now, KenFlo, you coming to New York City, I've heard.
Yes, sir. I will be there on Friday, my man.
So DraftKings UFC 309 party, presented by Cuervo, Friday, November 15th, 9:30 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. Eastern. Where do we get a betting odd on KenFlo not being there past 1 a.m.?
Oh, man.
You can be sure I will be there right on the screws, 9:30 p.m. But as I have to call a pay-per-view the next night, I will not be there into the wee hours of the morning. But DraftKings UFC 309 party, presented by Cuervo, at the Floor Room FLEUR, the Fleur Room, the Fleur Room, 105 West 28th Street, New York, New York. See you guys Friday night. What are you guys doing? I want to see the Anik and Florian podcast viewers and listeners loud and proud at the Fleur Room, 105 West 28th Street, New York, New York. KenFlo will be there. Ray Longo likely to be there. Bilal Muhammad is supposed to not do anything for 6 to 8 weeks. Otherwise, he would be there. Jason Anik, my identical twin brother, will be there. So hopefully everybody will be with us Friday night, the Fleur Room, 105 West 28th Street with Cuervo and DraftKings. Now we get into the meat and bones of the program, ladies and gentlemen, as we recap UFC Fight Night. Magny versus Prates headlines is brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. I love that little stinger. Yeah, I mean, you got wipes and stingers, and we got Carlos, the Nightmare Prates. Now, you peeled back the film, and maybe you weren't as wowed as some others, but it is Carlos Prates yet again, perhaps putting a capstone on his 2024 Rookie of the Year campaign, now completed with a knockout of Neil Magny. It comes at 450 of round one. Lot to unpack here, despite a 4-minute and 50-second fight. KenFlo, your thoughts on the main event?
Yeah, man, it's crazy. And again, if you ask me, well, Kenny, surely now you are impressed by Prates, right? Right? Maybe. I mean, this guy, listen, he is so good at just capitalizing when he gets you hurt. And that to me indicates he has something special. No question about that. On the finish, I had to watch it several times to see where the heck he even hit Magny. And I think, yes, it definitely skimmed his temple or his head. But I think a lot of that was kind of cumulative, not only over the course of the fight for Magny, but also the fact that Magny has had a lot of tough fights. And that one just slept him. But Prates, it's like he's got a nuclear missile, that he can fire at any point during the fight. And it seems like not a whole lot is going on. He lands that one shot and you're sleeping.
By the way, our appearance is on the corner of 28th and 6th, right there on the corner at the Fleur Room. So can somebody find out what type of cigarettes Carlos Prates smokes so we can get him a Bic lighter and a pack of darts? So when you talk about Neil Magny's legacy and his status as top 5 all-time UFC wins, the training camps as well, right? All the sparring rounds and everything that he has asked of himself in terms of the MMA miles. You got to think Neil Magny ingests this result and in some part says to himself, like, there's no way I don't take that shot in my prime. And I say that with all due respect. We understand the equilibrium business, and it's all about location and hitting somebody behind the ear. And this certainly speaks in some part to maybe Carlos Prates having some sort of death touch. But you got to feel like Magny extends this fight into a second round, or at least is able to eat this a little bit better, closer to his fighting prime. No?
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought so. And it wasn't one of those shots where you see it and you're like, okay, that makes absolute sense. They hit him right on the chin, yada, yada. No, it just skimmed right off the top of the head. And I think a lot of it has to do with Prates and his ability to land with structure, land with power. But I think Magny, at a certain point in his career, probably would have been able to withstand that shot. Maybe I'm looking too much into it. But that's my take anyway.
How do you feel like your chin is right now? And do you feel, in all seriousness, that your brain, in terms of articulation or the way you feel, is better than it was when you retired in 2011?
Gosh, I'm lucky that I didn't have a lot of big shots. However, if you look at the end of my career when I faced Diego Nunes, BJ Penn certainly rocked me with a good shot. There's not a whole lot of times during my career where I felt rocked or looked rocked, thankfully. But again, it only takes one, or it only takes one fight for there to be a lot of damage that maybe doesn't make you the same when you walked into that fight. So it's really tough, man. It's really tough to point to, certain points where even I might not be okay. And then 5 years or I might be okay. And 5 years later, it's like, I'm not. So, this sports clearly takes its toll on you, similar to football, similar to rugby and some of those other sports where you are taking concussive damage. And, that's why defense is such an important and underestimated aspect of this sport.
We still don't talk enough about it. Defense and footwork's role in defense. One of the harder shots you took was probably me in Kieran Portley's office, just throwing you up against the wall when I didn't like what you were saying in that MMA live pre-show meeting. Blasted KenFlo's head up against the side of the wall, and he knew not to mess with that 165-pound version of me back in the day. Am I right? No, that actually never happened. So this UFC welterweight division is wicked interesting. We had a lot for you on it last week. They're all chasing Bilal. Remember the name Muhammad. And Neil Magny had that number 15 ranking. As we mentioned, he was holding on to it for dear life. Presumably that will now belong to Carlos Prates. KenFlo, you can look at that welterweight top 15. Listeners can't necessarily, but a lot of these guys are matched up. Is there any name on the tip of your tongue as to who you'd like to see against Carlos Prates? Jeff Neal needs a fight. He's not going to fight down. Gilbert Burns.
That's the one I was looking at was Jeff Neal and also Michael Morales. I don't know if he has anything on the horizon as of right now, but that would be interesting as well. Two guys that are studs that are coming up right now that I feel are, and at least anyway, in their prime or close to it.
Welterweight is just insane right now.
Yeah.
December 7th was to be the title fight. It remains to be seen as to whether, or not, they do an interim fight for the title. But Colby Covington has recently called out Jack Della Maddalena, and perhaps that's a fight that makes some semblance of sense. Nice backup there by the producer, Code Blue. Kenny Florian, just 1.71 strikes absorbed per minute in his career. 9th all-time at lightweight, KenFlo, huh?
I mean, how they were able to miss this nose and big head, I mean, I should have got extra credit for that.
Yeah.
But somehow they weren't able to.
Whoa.
Yeah, I tried to pride myself on that, man. I tried not to take too much damage. I figured we'd be doing something together at some point, a podcast.
Right.
I'd probably need to know how to talk,
Preserve that brain, That's why I invested in the body when I threw you up against the wall in Port's office. We went right here.
Thank you for that.
You invest in the body.
You did kick my ass on the basketball court. I do remember that. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to Carlos Prates. And again, just the latest example of something that I always trot out, right? There was this quote, former Boston Celtics head coach Rick Pitino was upset with the negativity in the city of Boston when it came to the Celtics and just sports. And he said something to the effect of, Larry Bird is not walking through that door, right? There's Larry Bird. Robert Parrish is not walking through that door. Kevin McHale is not walking through that door. And when we talk about stars in the UFC, Kenny, and people worrying back in the day when Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey retire, who's walking through that door, right? I mean, should I start to list all the different potential welterweight stars we have right now just in one fucking division, right? Across the world in all these different countries, right? I mean, we're wearing stars and stripes today. Do I need to talk about Sean Brady? I mean, Shavkat Rakhmonov with Kazakhstan, Ian Machado Gary potentially getting Ireland behind him, even if the fan base has some frustrations with him. On and on it goes, man. Joaquin Buckley looks like just a concussion waiting to happen right now. Michael Venom Page is still to be heard from. Michael Morales might be the best among the young undefeated fighters. So the UFC is in fine fettle when it comes to star power, and Carlos Prates obviously took care of business as best he could this weekend with a first-round knockout. And, we got Ray Longo early? It's not make a good man wait. It's like Morgan Freeman. Guy's a fucking legend. Longo MMA on the shirt. Can you hold that up for a little? Put your coffee down. You're fine. You're awake enough. So, let me see that shirt, Ray. Can you hold it up?
That's the.
Yeah. Longo Weidman MMA. Now somewhat defunct, but it's great to see. And it's a great shirt. It's a great shirt for this week. So I'm excited just to see you. It is UFC 309 fight week. One of your all-timers is competing at Madison Square Garden. So we're very excited.
Yep.
All right. So we'll get to Weidman in a little bit, but I would like to start, if I could, with UFC 309, John Jones and Stipe Miocic, and then we can get into some fight night stuff. I know you're a big recap guy, but I want to lead with John and Stipe today if I could. So John Jones in the last 5 years or so has really not fought a lot. And the same can be said for Stipe Miocic, right? So Jones has just one fight in the last 4 years and 9 months. So essentially one fight in the last half decade. Granted, it was a dominating 2 minutes and 4 seconds against Ciryl Gane. And then Stipe, one fight in the last 4 years as well. And I would also point out with Stipe, last 2 heavyweight title fights happened at the UFC Apex in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic in 2021. So I guess my question to you, Ray, in some part is like, what are we doing here, right? I mean, it's an amazing fight. It's legends colliding. I work for the promoter. I'm excited to call the fight, but inactivity is a big part of the narrative as far as I'm concerned, and it makes it a hard fight for me to handicap despite a wide betting line.
Oh, man, what is the betting line before we get out there? What's the line?
So it's bounced around, but Stipe is close to plus 500, plus 470.
Wow.
So $100 bet on Stipe pays you like $500.
Wow, beautiful. I think if you look at Dana White, Dana's a loyal guy. When you're in his inner circle, I think that's a big thing. And I think these two guys were dominant champs for him. And I think that's why you're seeing, even though there's inactivity, this is the fight I think these guys wanted. And I think he's accommodating them. I think that's really what you're seeing. There's two guys that really help build the company or, help keep the company going. They were great. Jones, like, again, you hear the way Dana talks about him. So, he thinks highly of him. And Stipe was a very dominant heavyweight. So I think the fight has to happen. The inactivity, yeah, I don't think anybody's going to agree with, but you know what? It's going to be a fun fight.
And Ray, there's the years of inactivity, but also there's, of course, the age, right?
Yeah,
Jon Jones isn't young. He's 37. However, Stipe is 42.
Yeah.
What are you expecting from Stipe? Is this going to be a comeback, kind of like a Sugar Ray Leonard when he came back and actually looked phenomenal? Or do you think we're going to see maybe a slowed down version of the former champ?
Well, I'll tell you what, Kenny, there comes a point in time, too, where sometimes taking time off is a good thing. You know what I mean? And Stipe's always active. He's a fireman. He's definitely going to come in shape. I guarantee you that. It is what it is at 42. But I think for Stipe, I think was a well-needed rest. And if he could stay in shape, I mean, I think he could actually even win the fight. You know what I mean? But we'll see. I mean, Jones he's good. He made that Ciryl Gane fight look easy. I don't think he could do that to Stipe, so I think that's the interesting point for me. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think the rest could have did Stipe good. I think it was well deserved. And again, he's a guy that always stays in shape. And look, we have a 60-year-old fighting a 27-year-old coming up Friday night. I mean, I'm for the old guys. So I mean, I did like the Tyson thing to me, not just a segue over, is just, if he could pull this off, even though I don't think, like much of Jake Paul in boxing terms, I think this is a huge thing for, he looks crisp on those pads. It doesn't always transfer over, Kenny,
right?
But he looks phenomenal. I mean, Sugar Ray Leonard was my favorite boxer of all time. And you watch him hit the pads now, and he's a couple of years older. It's not looking like this guy.
Okay,
you know
so
what I mean?
To go to this fight, do you think Tyson has the power to be able to take him out? And do you think if it goes the distance, he's still going to be there and dangerous?
Kenny, I hope so. How's that? I hope so. I think he still has the power. Obviously, they say that's the last thing to leave. The cardio is the problem if the fight gets stretched.
Right.
But they're 2-minute rounds, I believe. So I don't think he's going to have a problem with that. And the difference is going to be, has Jake Paul been hit hard in the gym, or is he, picking his sparring partners? There's a lot in there. But I mean, the odds are definitely stacked against Tyson. I mean, this is a huge mountain to climb, being an older guy like that. So, getting back to the Stipe thing, I think that age is a problem, but we're talking about a guy 20 years younger. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think maybe Tyson's normalizing like an older athlete, so it's making Stipe even look younger. I don't know, something like that. But Stipe's the man. I think he leads a really clean life. And I think he comes in really good shape. But he's not coming into that fight out of shape. I think Stipe's a blue collar. He's a grinder. If he couldn't do it, I don't even think he would do it. So I like Stipe. I like his attitude. I like what he did with his career, his team. He's a loyal dude. I love everything about him.
Yeah, and I love everything about you. except for maybe the sound coming from your computer and you sabotaging the show a little bit and then taking it to Jake Paul in my opening segment. No, Ray Longo minute every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. I do think there is connective tissue in terms of what you are saying. I have some betting lines on Jake Paul and Mike Tyson that I was going to get into towards the end of the Ray Longo minute. I figured we would keep it on the mixed martial arts here, though, off the top for a second. So I agree with you. Stipe Miocic right now is plus 470, right? But over the last 2 years, when I have suggested to my contemporaries, if I can call my broadcast partners and fellow fighters that, I haven't been able to get a lot of people to bite when I suggest that maybe Stipe is a live underdog despite being 42 years of age. Can't we all but guarantee that if he's healthy, Kenny, that he's done the right work in terms of his cardiovascular energy? And I don't know, man. I understand. John Jones is John Jones. He's leaner, figuratively meaner. He didn't like that Stipe called him a bitch. I get all of it. Greatest of all time. But I don't know, man. I think Stipe deserves a little bit better in the preamble and lead up to this fight is all.
Yeah, listen, I would say never underestimate someone like Stipe Miocic, but the problem is that Stipe is facing two opponents. One, John Jones, and number two, time. And that's what's concerning most to me is, okay, you know, the time off is one thing, but 42 years old after having a lot of fights in MMA, I always tell people, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm 48, not young. But it's kind of, there's a multiplier similar to dog years that you have to kind of include in there. And it's not exactly a fresh, 42 years old for Stipe Miocic. Yeah. But he's again, similar to Tyson, he's still going to have the power. He's still going to have the will. There is no question about that. And John Jones sometimes gets a little sleepy early in fights, and that's where you can catch him. And Stipe definitely would like nothing more than to play spoiler here.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the other thing is I think today, so what's that saying? Like today's 50 is yesterday's, or today's 40 is yesterday's 50, or vice versa, whatever it is. But I always go back to. It's hard for me because I go back to I used to watch the old timers games with my father, and he'd tell me about all the great baseball players. This guy was that. This, it was a history lesson. And then I was a young kid, right? And I'm watching these guys go out and they're almost crippled. They can't swing the bat. They're hobbling around the bases. And these guys probably weren't more than 48 years old at that time. You know what I mean? So psychologically, like I'm pulling for anybody who's in an upper age disadvantage to pull it off. So, I'm never really breaking down fights for the right reason. I'm breaking them down for my own crazy reasons. And that's why I'm a horrible handicapper. But
they were running around bases, hitting balls, not fighting in heavyweight fights.
Right, exactly. And they couldn't even do that.
Right.
So I don't know. I think we're in a different time, and we have the nutrition is better. Not that the food is better, but you know what to do. Recovery, all the different modalities they have for everything. And if you follow that and you lead a clean life and you're not drinking, I don't know, man. I think you're going to be in good shape.
Your dad ever tell you about Sandy Koufax?
Not really, but I think I'm going to say I saw Sandy Koufax pitch against the Yankees when I was younger.
Sandy Koufax retired when he was 30 because of chronic pain in his left arm.
Wow. Well,
youngest player ever inducted into the Hall of Fame at 36 years of age. Left arm of God.
He could throw.
Sandy Koufax. All right, so from a technical standpoint in this fight between Stipe Miocic and John Jones, one thing that the Stipe coaches have suggested is that inactivity would be detrimental for Stipe in this fight. I think being inactive in motion, so always moving. And they also were talking rhythmically just about his defense for John Jones's myriad weapons, sort of just being a part of his rhythm in this type of fight. You can't get John Jones in the gym necessarily, but Ray, what do you think about how Stipe navigates this John Jones challenge, either on the feet or on the ground, technically speaking?
Man, like again, I think on the feet, I think he's got a really good chance because again, power is the last thing to leave you. And on the ground, I don't know. I mean, Jones, I think, would want to do to him what he did to Cyril Gane. And I think Stipe will hold up. Obviously, he's going to hold up way better than Cyril Gane. I don't care if he was 50. He's going to do better than that.
Yeah. Right.
It's an interesting fight. It really is. It's a really, really interesting fight. But You know, I'm not going to say any bad words about Stipe because I love the guy and I love his team, but I'm pulling for Stipe. I think he stands for all the right things,
Yeah.
and again, I'd love to see an upset. And I think if there's a guy to do it, it is Stipe because I think he is that blue collar grinder.
Yeah.
That, you know, like again, he's a family guy. I'm sure he stayed on the straight and narrow, and the other guy, we don't know what the hell he's doing, but I think the inactivity probably will hurt Jones more than it'll hurt Stipe, even with the age.
Cody, can you chase for me what the closing odds were for John Jones against Ciryl Gane, UFC 285, March of 2023? Because, Ray, I do think it speaks to part of your point there. The relative gameness of Stipe, right? He's not going to be looking for a way out when potential chokes are happening. So, I don't know. I'm encouraged by the prospects of this fight, and I do think there are a lot of unknowns on the John Jones side, and I'm going to have a lot more answers than I do questions, I think, after the fighter meetings with these two individuals on Thursday. Maybe you're not going to get complete truths from both men. I'm just curious the extent to which this fight is still box office, Ray. I mean, John Jones is John Jones, but I think there are a lot of pundits and talking heads maybe who don't work for the company who are going to want to allow the extent to which this fight is box office, given just how many question marks there are, given the lack of competition from both of these two men over the last 5 years.
Yeah, and the human body is extremely complicated. And when someone's coming back from something like a torn muscle, many times, if your recovery is not perfect, both in the rest that you put into your body and the recovery, the rehab that you do or don't do, it can lead to other muscular issues, shoulder problems because of torn pec that leads to the back of the back of the shoulder, the top of the shoulder. What does that do with how you carry your hand, and what does it do for the power that you may have, lost? So there's a lot of question marks for sure in this fight. I mean, Jones is coming back from a major surgery. And again, he's another guy that has had a lot of tough fights as well. So it's going to be really interesting.
But Kenny, for those type of things, because trust me, as a coach, I watch my guys fight injured. I want to say kind of all the time, 80% of the time. But time is a really good healing factor. You know what I mean? If you're not killing yourself and you're not in those fights and those stressful camps every time, I think the time could be an asset in actually healing. It's always going to make things feel better because, again, you have access to great physical therapy now. Supplementation is on point. If you're eating the right diet, it all adds up. And whoever, when you get to a certain point, those are things that could really make a difference in a fight.
I'm in love with your accent. Earlier today, you were talking about Stipe, Ray, and you were like, he's a fireman, just everything you fucking say is just music to my ears. I'm looking up the live betting line right now on Stipe Miocic and John Jones on DraftKings Sportsbook because Stipe is up to plus 525 and he opened plus 240. And this is but one lens through which to look at this fight, right? But John Jones against Ciryl Gane closed minus 143. And right now he's like minus 700 against the most accomplished on paper heavyweight champion of all time. Stipe 4 times defended this belt across 2 reigns. I know he's 42, but I remember one time on a hot mic saying Glover Teixeira breaks through at 42, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm on an island sometimes when I say this fight seems more competitive than the betting line would indicate. It every time I go into the fucking sports book, KenFlo, the price gets bigger. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's good. But I think Glover's a great example because he's another grinder and old timer that really did well. I could see Stipe doing that too, man. I'm betting him. I'm going to bet him. Not that I bet, but if I did bet him.
Kenny's got to save a lot of his bullets because we're doing an extensive UFC 309 preview in like an hour. So, Kenny, I'm just going to have you not go too deep right now, if that's actually possible. But in terms of the bet, Ray, it sounds to me, I mean, how do you bet? We've asked you this question certainly before in 524 shows, but if you're trying to place a bet, how do you do that? Are you doing it on an application? Are you doing it with your local guy Loopy over there, or what?
Yeah, it would be through Loopy.
Loopy 3000, right? Hey, I'm gonna count 413827. Give me $200 on Stipe Miocic. Did we just lose Ray Longo?
We lost him.
Shot.
Loopy cut it. Yeah.
So last week, for the first time in 523 appearances on the show, Ray Longo tried to play program director. Oh, there he is. Hi, Raymond.
We were
Talking shit.
we left off at Lupe on the corner.
Yeah.
Yo, Lupe.
Hey. Yeah. Hey, so last week on the program, you decided you wanted to like play program director on the show for the first time in 523 episodes. You want like the questions and the topics in advance, right?
Well, listen, I do other podcasts. I get in like a, I guess an itinerary, of what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Now we're not good enough for you. Is that what's going on, Ray?
What is he doing right now? Is he praying? What is he
I'm
doing?
thinking about who I'm going to replace you with on the podcast.
Can I get some help on the show?
This is insane, right? So I don't get sensitive or defensive about too many things, but preparation is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a producer on this
you're
program. I've sent a
guy.
rundown 524 times, right? And I don't know if you have electronic mail or not. We can certainly send you that and get you the topics in advance so that when it's John Jones, Stipe, Miocic fight week, you don't answer the first question and take it right to fucking take ball. So, all right. So Ray wants all the topics in advance, so we can get that done for you for episode 5.
I don't really
what
want.
are these other podcasts you're going on?
It would be
that
nice. I said it would be nice.
So I don't know the extent to which you're handsomely paid or otherwise by these other shows. What are these podcasts you go on that send you all the topics in advance, though, while we're on the subject?
I'm just saying, wow.
What?
No, this was meant to be an argument. I'm just saying there have been times where I get a list of things that we're talking about.
Who are you seeing on the side, Ray? That's what we want to know.
Oh, I don't know. This hasn't happened in a while.
Okay.
So I do think in the nature of organic conversation, we have to reserve the right to bounce all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're
we're
prepared
bouncing.
to talk about your hairline or your barber or gratuity or anything else. Are you getting tuned up for UFC 309 or no?
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're not trying to look like Michael Chiesa, like we've been living on a fucking bus in Alaska eating poisonous plants, right?
Oh, now we're attacking Chiesa?
No, I mean,
one of the nicest people in martial arts. How dare you? How dare you attack that guy?
Yes, is the man, but let us not pretend at certain weigh-ins he hasn't looked like he's been living on a bus in the Pacific Northwest or Alaska eating like poisonous plants. Okay. I wasn't the person who wrote that. I think it was Jeff Gallo quoting some movie. KenFlo's heard this more times than he cares to.
Love it. I love it. I was in line with him checking in, and he smelled a little ripe one time. But anyways, I love Mike. I love him. Happens to me too.
It's
so
priceless.
We have a lot of things to get to, and of course I kid. It's all love, right? I am curious as to some of these other programs, but some other things in my notes if I could. So your guy Charlie Campbell is not fighting Mauricio Ruffi at UFC 309. And Kenny watched the film on this guy, and he's pretty damn impressive. To what extent had you dove into the preparation for this kid, Mauricio Ruffi, who is kicking off the pay-per-view here coming up this weekend?
Well, I mean, he pulled out, I think, pretty early, but
right,
very impressed with Ruffi. What he did with Malaki, was that his name?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, he just dissected him. You could see he's at a different level because Malaki's he's a average, good stand-up fighter, but he just picked him apart. He looked fantastic in that fight. So, and plus he's coming from a team that's absolutely on fire. Whatever those, isn't he part of the Nerds?
The Nerds,
the
Nerds.
I mean, those guys, even what Prodis did the other night, these guys are they're on a roll, man. So you have to respect that. That was that. I thought that was going to be a very interesting fight for Charlie. I'm sorry it's not happening, but
I am too.
Ruffi's no joke, But Charlie's a tough kid too, so it would have been interesting.
Yeah, Charlie's a really tough kid. There's no way that Mauricio Ruffi, unless I could stand corrected here, but there's no way that he would be minus 800 or so against Charlie Campbell, I wouldn't think, because he's a massive favorite against this fighter whose name I'm not going to pronounce yet because we're going to have fun later in the main event challenge. All right, we got a few more minutes here with the great, and I mean great, legendary coach Ray Longo. So Chris Weidman taking on Eric Anders in the middleweight division. This preliminary bout can be seen live on ESPN News. Madison Square Garden hasn't necessarily been kind to your guy, so we'll see how it goes here at the Mecca for Weidman. Any idea what the betting line is on this fight, Raymond?
I'm going to say Weidman is the favorite.
So Chris Weidman is not the favorite.
Wow.
So it
That's
sounds
gotta
to me
be-
like you need to call Andre Lupi 3000 and tell him that professional bettor 413-827 needs another straight wager. Chris Weidman right now plus 120 and climbing on DraftKings Sportsbook.
Plus 120. That's pretty
close.
Yeah.
That's close. Yeah.
Yeah, that's close.
Weidman's winning. Weidman's winning the fight.
So he's 0-2 at MSG. Eric Anders now 37. Weidman 40 years of age, Ray, kind of non-committal beyond this fight. How much do you think this result is going to play into what happens for Chris beyond Saturday night?
Ooh. Man, you really have to.
Again, a question that probably should have been sent to you prior. I apologize.
You should. Yeah, 100%. You should. That's a question
Well,
only he
maybe
can answer. But
it's
I
insane.
think it will have something to do with what holds the future for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are these podcasters who are getting you the questions in advance?
Wow.
Just name one.
I'm going to keep you in
There's
suspense.
nothing better than a fired up John Anik. I love it.
Just name one of them. Name one.
Unfiltered.
Oh my God.
Look at him.
He's jealous. He's jealous, Ray, and he's pissed.
What is this going on?
He's neither of those emotions.
Oh my God.
You're
Yeah.
disappointed.
All right.
That's the worst one.
Ray,
So, I think he's firing me on
He's about to get
on live
you're out of
TV. Yeah.
well, it's amazing, right? Because I'm not sensitive to your Minutemen whatsoever. We actually have converted some of these Minutemen. They're coming over to my fucking side of things. We need a group name for my cronies, you know?
That'll never happen.
So some numbers on Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, if I could,
Yeah,
right?
let's
So
do it.
I don't know where the betting handle is right now, but I do know that when I sent our handicappers the line, Jake Paul was minus 260 as the betting favorite, and Mike Tyson was plus 200. And if you don't know, this is happening in Arlington, Texas on Friday night, I believe, in the heavyweight division. Jake Paul right now is minus 220. Mike Tyson is plus 175. Mike Tyson by knockout is plus 260. Jake Paul by knockout or TKO or DQ is plus 125. Over under 6.5 rounds, slightly juiced to the under, minus 130 for under 6.5 rounds. Ray, forced to put $100 on this fight. It sounds like maybe you're taking a flyer on Mike Tyson by knockout at plus 260.
I would take that. Yeah. That's what I would
KenFlo,
take.
I know you're going to talk about this a little bit later, but what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Gosh, well, listen, he certainly has a chance. And from what he's saying, he said he's going to get right into his face and get right to work early. I think that's his best chance. So we're going to see. I'll save my bullets. But
Okay.
gosh, it's still at the end of the day, it's a 27-year-old taking on a 58-year-old. So I don't know.
You know what's horrible to me? This is the horrible part to me. Imagine if Tyson was 27 and this guy's 27. What happens in that fight?
Oh,
What happens?
He'd kill whoever.
The
that
odds are probably
58-year-old
minus 2,000. So this, even no matter what happens, this kid's gonna think that he beats. I do it. It's amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing to me. Like when his brother fight Floyd Mayweather, who was a 135-pounder, like, and then think that he, the guy was, how old was he? 48, 47.
Right.
This is
Hey, what
insanity.
happens between Jake Paul and a prime Peter McNeely?
I'll tell you what. I bet you Peter McNeely wins. I bet you McNeely wins. Those are the guys that they would line McNeely up with, moving up the
Medfield,
ladder.
Massachusetts kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
our famed artist, Average Joe Romero, who designed the poster for UFC 308. He's done all of our One More Sleep designs. His MSG design right now is at johnanik.com. He loves when we invoke the Boston accent. So if you're looking for something to do later today, folks, go to google.com and Google Peter McNeely and just find some videos. It is a fucking gold mine. Just listening to that man talk, pre-concussed and otherwise. I say that with all due respect, but Peter McNeely, man. Yeah, prime Peter McNeely or Peter McNeely now against Jake Paul. I'll fucking watch it. I don't care. All right, a few other things I'd like to get to. So, Chris Weidman, to what extent are you excited, emotional to make that walk with him here coming up in a few days?
Awesome.
I mean, it's got to be pretty exciting for you, new hip and everything else, to make this walk with Chris at MSG.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. He sounds great. We've been talking, and he's I'm sure Jimbo's doing a great job with him. He seems injury free, which I always love.
Yep.
And yeah, I think Whiteman's he's a different breed. I think I'm saying he's definitely winning that fight. And then we'll see what happens after that. But I think this is a great fight for him. I like Eric Anders, but I think it's a really, it's a even fight. Like, you know what I mean? They're not throwing him into with a guy that's ranked number 2 or like an up and coming guy. These are both guys at the tail end of their career. And I think it's going to be a fun fight.
All right. Weidman wins. I shave my eyebrows with a 0 attachment, right? So not with a razor, but I shave my eyebrows down to a 0. Oh, I might not be able to do that on TV, huh?
Yeah, you won't.
So, all right. Weidman wins. I'll shave my eyebrows with a 1 attachment. Anders wins. You shave your head with a 1.
No, I'm not doing that.
All right.
Can't get
then
rid
I
of
won't
that's
shave
like
my eyebrows.
That's like Ulysses. I lose my hair. I have nothing.
I was
The
trying
only
to
thing
see how confident you were in your guy. Hair grows back.
The thing is, I'm a man of my word, so I don't want to say nothing I don't want to do, no matter what. So.
All right, a few other things before we get you out of here, Raymond, if I could. So Aljamain Sterling and Movsar Evloev is obviously on the calendar here in the not too distant future. What is your best guess, though, for Merab Dvalishvili in terms of the calendar for this first bantamweight championship title defense? Is he healthy?
As far as I know, he's healthy. He's coming in this week. We're going to do the ceremony and moving his picture up with the other champion, so I'm excited for that.
When are you doing that?
Wednesday night.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so that's going to be nice.
I might have to. Am I invited even or no?
100%.
Maybe not. After today's show, maybe fucking not.
That door is always open for you guys. You don't ask.
Well, no, if you don't know, this is a particularly special thing. If my reaction to you saying that is any indication, if memory serves, Aljamain Sterling wins the undisputed title on a DQ, and Ray doesn't anoint him and put him up there until he actually wins the title cleanly. Merab is going up on Wednesday night. What time are we doing this?
I think 6 p.m.
That's awesome.
Oh, I can't get there by 6, but I wish you guys all the best. That's amazing. As Merab joins the Wall of Champions there at Longo MMA in Garden City, New York. Is that open to the public or no?
We didn't plan it like that, but that's interesting. That's another interesting. We got to start pumping out the ads. So yeah, we'll see.
They're showing up now. They're showing up now.
They might show up now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Merab, I mean, he's been sparring Aljo, so I think he is healthy, but he's probably I think he's just enjoying himself. A well-deserved victory lap for that guy too. So I say by February or March, he's back in there.
It is interesting because we've talked at length on this podcast over the years about Jessica Andrade's decision to defend her title after slamming Rose Namajunas on her head like 3 months later on UFC Fight Pass against Zhang Weili in China. And I was critical privately, internally to Bilal Muhammad in some part of him just turning this thing around so quickly. I mean, thank goodness it wasn't Salt Lake City, but I think even just not allowing his body proper time to heal after the Leon Edwards fight potentially could have resulted in this infection. So a victory lap or otherwise, I do think it's wise for Merab to sit back and just allow the championship reign to marinate just a little bit. I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, I agree 100% with you. And he was an active guy too. It wasn't like he was inactive.
Right. Oh, of course.
He'd rather stay busy, but this was a big deal for this kid.
Yeah.
Going back, you saw the crowds in Georgia and even France, everywhere. I mean, he's a likable guy, man. You could tell by his videos and how good he's doing on social media, and even what he did with that kid on stage. He's just, you have to love the guy. He is a man of the people. He's never going to disappoint, I don't believe.
He's the man. He is so great for the sport. You put it really well. He is just totally infectious in the best of all ways, and we can't wait to see the title defense whenever it happens. All right, Raymond, we're going to let you get on with the rest of your Monday. I know it's a big week. You're looking great. You're looking lean and mean, my man.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
did you not eat at all this weekend? Do you do a 72-hour fast?
I wish I could do a 72-hour fast. I have to try that.
Well, metabolically, just being wired like I am, I feel like I'm burning a lot of calories on this podcast today, just coming at you. But it's all love. So where are you sleeping Friday night, Ray, on the eve of UFC 309? You sleeping at home?
No, I'll be at the wherever the host hotel is. What
All right,
hotel is?
Well,
Can
we
tell
have an
you.
Anik and Florian podcast appearance that we would request your presence at. You can talk to Jason Anik about a
Yeah.
rate if you need to be paid for this appearance. Jay will cut you in.
Right.
But we are going to be on Friday night, November 15th. KenFlo will be there at the Fleur Room on the corner of 28th and 6th, 105 West 28th Street, New York, New York, very close to the host hotel. It's a UFC 309 party, and we're going to be there at 9:30 p.m. with our listeners and viewers. And,
On
we're
Friday
wondering if
night?
you might grace us. Yeah.
Friday
Well,
night.
that's perfect.
Let's go.
'Cause I think-
Go,
I think-
Ray.
I
Look at
think
those
that-
muscles, dude.
I
See
yeah,
you.
John, what are you? Are you on?
Hey.
You on steroids?
I think he's on the juice.
No,
I think
really,
he's
I
on
think
the
he's
juice.
on the juice.
He's on
Look
the
at
juice. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
UFC 309 party. Ray Longo is going to be here. Loud and proud.
Yeah.
That's breaking news. So, hey, we love you.
We love
Wish
you
you all
too.
the best with Chris Weidman.
And Kenny, when we say he's on the juice, obviously we're talking about prune juice.
Yeah,
But,
of course.
I
Yeah,
gotta
of course.
go. All right,
Okay.
I'll see you 9:30 at the whatever
The
room
flow
that is.
room. No, it's
the
the
floor
floor
room. Yeah, the
Yeah,
flua. The
And if
flua.
I can surprise
Flua.
you on
Flua.
Wednesday night,
Yes, let's do it.
I'll try to get there. All right, Ray. Appreciate your time, brother. Much love.
Awesome, buddy. Love you guys. Take it easy.
There he is, the future Hall of Famer, Ray Longo, with us every week here on the Anik and Florian podcast. And just you all wait until Eric Anders goes in and just silences all of those throaty New Yorkers on Saturday night. I'm just kidding. I'm really just kidding. I wrote in a couple of other jokes later today that are sure to offend. We'll see if I actually get to them in this era in which everybody is so sensitive. So we have a few minutes here before we are joined by Dr. June Chin and Aiemann Zahabi. There are a few other things I'd like to get to on the UFC fight night, and then some 309 stuff as well, some John Jones stuff. By the way, how's your shoulder? I mean, rumor has it that you're like a one-armed man right now.
I got a little impingement on my left shoulder right now, so it's a little stiff out of nowhere. I think it's just a little bit of arthritis, doing a lot of shooting. So, oh well. What you gonna
Shooting
do?
takedowns?
Guns, a little different, a
Guns.
little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
So are you going to now take a break from shooting guns? No.
I haven't been, and that's why it's getting worse. So I think I do. I need to take time off to let it recover.
Yeah.
I'm talking about recovery. People doing stupid stuff. I'm the stupid guy.
Yeah. What about jujitsu? When's the last time you rolled?
Gosh, not in a while. Not in a
Yeah.
little while. Not in a little while. Yeah, not in a little while.
Well, if any of you guys are out there, Brian Battle and the likes, KenFlo's got a padded jujitsu room in his house, so you can go train with him. So Rainier de Ritter, RDR, gets Gerald Meerschaert out of there by submission, as he suggested he would. Arm triangle comes at 144 of round 3. This guy's already calling for a fight with Khamzat Chimaev, but what'd you make of the UFC debut for RDR?
He looked good, man. I think his grappling skills I thought were impressive, because especially given the fact that Meerschaert is no slouch there on the ground. And I felt like de Ritter was looking really good there, was very fast. And again, I saw that before the fight, but I think his athleticism really was the difference. His length is a bit of a problem as well, but he moves really well. He knows how to engage his grappling at the right time. And I think he was getting the better of the takedown game against Meerschaert. That was giving him a lot of trouble. And because of that, he came away with the win. So I don't think he's ready for someone like Khamzat. I think he should slow his roll there. I don't think there's a whole lot of people in that division that are ready for Khamzat, but I like the confidence, and I like the fact that we have yet another dangerous dude at 185 pounds in the UFC, man.
You put $900 of your $1,000 on Mansour Abdul Malik. You did not have to wait very long for that to cash KenFlo. The TKO comes in large part due to a knee that would have felled lesser men. He gets Dushko Todorovic out of there, 244 round 1.
My guy is a problem.
Dude.
He's a problem, John. Like, he has that athleticism. He has that power. And now he has very good guidance and coaches and people around him to steer him in that right direction. And he is going to be a tough guy to beat. And if you're going to beat him, face him now, because as he gets more experience, he will be that much more dangerous. But one thing's for sure, he's the kind of guy that if he just clips you, he can knock you out. So I'm excited to see what he brings in the future.
Middleweight and welterweight are both on fire. I'm not sure if you saw Chuck Buffalo, Charles Radke's knockout of Matthew Semmelsberger.
Beautiful.
I don't know if you have anything for us on that, but dude, like, I just think bigger picture, like a guy like Chuck Buffalo, right? He's competing on the same night as Carlos Prates, right? And how far do you think Charles Radke thinks he is from that level? I would suggest you not very far. 55, 70, 85, just crawling with absolute killers. And I'm not trying to make some grand statement about Chuck Buffalo and his future in the rankings, but dude, he's a great athlete, power stroke. I mean, I buy Chuck Buffalo. I buy his coaches. I buy his team. I think he can make a real run.
Absolutely. I think the big thing for Chuck Buffalo is going to be that, that space between his ears, right? Is how focused he stays, how disciplined he stays throughout his training, because, he is consistently, showing flashes of brilliance. That knockout was a thing of beauty. That short shot was just a crushing punch. And he's the kind of guy as well who carries that level of athleticism and power that can give anybody a problem. If he hits you right, if he's setting it up properly and using his IQ out there, he's going to get a lot more wins like that.
All right, we also congratulate Damon Blackshear, big submission win over Cody Stamen. Stamen, historically a very hard guy to get out of there, and he gets him out of there with a rear naked choke at the 4:19 mark of round one. Trayshawn Gore with a nice submission win by guillotine over Antonio Trocoli. Good fight night. Jillian Robertson gets another win. She was kind of unenthused about it, but it was a unanimous decision nod over Luana Pinheiro, and that's sort of the book on UFC Fight Night. The bonus winners, Chuck Buffalo, Mansour Abdul Malik, and of course, Carlos Prates and Damon Blackshear. Nice to see him get 50K. He was out for a while, and he's back on the horse. All right, more on 309 coming up in about 60 seconds. But this in totality is the week fight fans have been waiting for. Two intriguing showdowns on back-to-back nights. You can get in on all the action, not now, but right now at DraftKings Sportsbook. First up, Friday in Arlington, Texas, the one-time baddest man on the planet, Mike Tyson, stepping back into the ring to face Jake Paul. Then Saturday night, UFC legends collide in New York City. Johnny Jones putting his light heavyweight title on the line against Stipe Miocic. As always, big fights mean big offers from DraftKings. If you are a new customer, you can bet just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code AFPOD. That's code AFPOD for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/MMA. The NFL is just chewing me up and spitting me out. Yesterday, I did throw something across the room, and I said I had made my last NFL bet, and then I made another deposit at night and got right back in there. So
Nice.
John Jones made some comments about his future after UFC 309. And in part, I don't want to spend too much time on this because first things first, right? Stipe Miocic in the crosshairs coming up this weekend. But John Jones has intimated that if he does fight again, and many indications are that he will not, but if he does beat Stipe, he has said the fight that is of greater appeal to him is Alex Pereira and not Tom Aspinall. Now, a lot of people have been suggestive that now John Jones is ducking Tom Aspinall, and I just want to get your thoughts on this and what ultimately you think could happen on the other side of UFC 309.
Well, I think, similar to investments, you have to weigh your risk management, right? It's about risk management and what is going to bring in that potential money in, right? So you're looking at it from the standpoint of a businessman. You're looking at the standpoint also of legacy as well. So let's pick that apart a little bit. Pereira is a bigger draw than Aspinall as of right now. The dude is a legit superstar. Aspinall, no slouch in that department probably as well, but I would argue that Pereira at this stage of the game is going to bring in more money in a fight with John Jones than, say, Aspinall. Okay, so there's that. So there's more money involved. And, you have the star power as far as legacy of what Pereira is doing right now. I think he's gaining more attention than perhaps even Aspinall. Aspinall is a little more quiet, a little more reserved. And then I would say based on their overall skills, Aspinall is a more dangerous fight for John Jones. Why? Because Pereira, amazing on the feet, absolute killer. So is Aspinall. The big difference is their ground game, right? Aspinall is still a killer. He's a submission hound on the ground, where Pereira maybe is a little bit weaker in that department. Not bad, but certainly not at the level of Aspinall. So when you're weighing all of those things, it's like, yeah, I'm going to make more money against a potentially easier fight in Pereira. Yeah, let's do that. And I think that's where he's coming from.
To what extent was George St. Pierre ever criticized for anything resembling legacy preservation? Right? I mean, he fought Michael Bisping. He came back, not when Luke Rockhold was the undisputed middleweight champion, right?
Yeah.
With all due respect, right? But he came back in a setting in which he was a betting favorite to win the middleweight championship. He did not defend that belt, right? Now, I'm not saying that there was an obvious, next guy at 85 that he was not necessarily willing to fight, right? But, Robert Whitaker was, I think, the guy. But, right? Was George ever criticized for trying to preserve his legacy the way maybe John is being criticized right now?
No, I don't think he was. No.
Okay. All right. So
I don't remember anyway. Yeah.
So Tom Aspinall is a guy that I have repeatedly put over. I absolutely love the guy. I think he is destined for greatness and financial freedom and all of those things. But for John Jones, right, to walk off into the sunset after this fight and try to preserve that legacy, I don't think is something that should be judged nor criticized at this stage of his career. I don't think that he needs that capstone that is beating Tom Aspinall or Alex Pereira. And yes, Poatan right now is the biggest superstar competing actively in mixed martial arts. And I think that would be proven at the box office. But in a straight meritocracy, as we've said, if this was the Anik and Florian Fighting Championships, yeah, we would make John Jones fight Tom Aspinall, or we would probably cut the greatest of all time, right, KenFlo? Because we're fucking cutthroat as promoters, right?
We're brutal, absolutely.
Johnny Bones. So
we rule with an iron fist.
All right, so Manon Fior. I have to get to this if I could before we get to Dr. June Chin, and then of course Aiemann Zahabi coming up before our full-fledged UFC 309 preview. So I'm loving this back and forth publicly between Manon Fior and Valentina Shevchenko. This is going to be the next women's flyweight championship fight. But Valentina Shevchenko, just in maybe her most impressive career performance to date, defeated Alexa Grasso not all that long ago. But Manon Fior has not been able to fight a lot over the last several years. She did have a knee injury herself, but by and large, it's been hard for her to get fights, and she's beaten Rose Namajunas and Erin Blanchfield back-to-back in 25-minute fights. So here's the quote from Manon Fior. "Stop making people wait. Let's do it soon enough so I can send you to retirement and move on." And how about this reply from Valentina Shevchenko? "You lose, you retire. Deal? Ill-mannered first grader." Valentina Shevchenko called her a fucking ill-mannered first grader. And then Fior responded, "Deal, I'll take you seriously when you've signed the contract, damn teacher's pet." So I'm liking the back and forth, right? One gets called a first grader, and then the other suggesting that there's some promotional protection going on. Either way, Kenny, it's a great fight. I love the back and forth, and friction is a good thing. We didn't have any with Stipe and John until a few minutes ago, which we will get to soon, right? So I'm excited for Manon Fior and Valentina Shevchenko.
100%, man. Bring the drama. Bring the drama. I think it gets the fans excited, and I think it makes fights even spicier. So bring it.
Manon Fior, undefeated in the weight class. She's won 12 in a row, I should say. She hasn't fought since the win over Erin Blanchfield, which took place in March. The Rose Namajunas win was last September. But yes, I mean, John Jones, it has finally been brought to his attention that Stipe Miocic called him a bitch under his breath. And perhaps that'll mean that we have some more intensity than we otherwise would have on Thursday or Friday. All right, now with us on the guest line on this live Veterans Day edition of the Anik and Florian podcast, she is the Chief Medical Officer for Leafwell, a professor at NYU and Syracuse University, and she has been a national leader in integrative medicine for more than 20 years. Dr. June Chin is with us live. Doctor, good to see you. We appreciate a few minutes today. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Awesome.
Sounds better than the paid broadcasters. So we have a lot to get to with you, and we appreciate you being a couple minutes early. So congratulations on all your success, literature and otherwise. I always wanted to be a professor. I'm not there yet. But medical cannabis is among the topics we're going to get to today. It's become widespread here, of course, in the United States. It has helped so many individuals with myriad conditions. And in a lot of respects, you've been at the forefront of knowledge and information. So LEAFWELL, the mission to make cannabis accessible, effective, and personalized for everyone so millions more can find the relief they need. When it comes to this initiative, to what extent are you satisfied, I guess, with the progress that has been made over the last decade or so?
I think it would be fantastic. The ultimate progress is it's normalized and health insurance can cover both the cannabis and the care.
So in terms of attacking that on the day-to-day basis, what are you guys doing to try to sort of get to a place that maybe sounded ambitious a few years ago that now I guess is within reach?
Well, I think rescheduling is a great inflection point. I've been in the cannabis medical space for a few decades, and a lot of my colleagues, a lot of health providers do not want to learn about cannabis medicine, or they'll shrug their shoulders when a patient comes in and says, "Could this be good for my chronic pain? Could this be good for my insomnia?" They'll usually say, "I have no idea. Try going to a dispensary." And when the patient gets to the dispensary, they're not getting any guidance. So I think things are changing. I think some of my colleagues are realizing, whether they like it or not, whether they believe in it or not, the science is following the medicine, and medical cannabis has its place. And providers and scientists and researchers really have to step in and provide support for patients.
So, doctor, why do you think that is the case? Why are other areas of medical personnel, why are they hesitant to use something like cannabis? Is it a lack of data? Is it a lack of education? Are they kind of more stuck in their ways? What do you attribute that to?
I think those are great comments. It's a little bit of both. It's still a Schedule 1, so federally it's illegal, right? So it basically is in the category of no medical use. And I would say stigma. A lot of health providers, grew up in the time where there's a war on drugs. They were not taught about cannabis in medical school, plant as medicine. And because they didn't go through training, they are with plant-based medicine, they are just not familiar with talking about it. And I think health providers in general are a very conservative group.
What are what are some of the things that you hear, maybe some falsehoods about cannabis that you hear that kind of gets you to roll your eyes a little bit and being like, what are some of the common misconceptions about cannabis?
I think the one biggest common misconception is that cannabis is a gateway drug. I think a lot of providers think that if they start condoning the use of medical cannabis to their patients, they'll just go ahead and ask for stronger painkillers or stronger, benzos. It'll just lead to stronger and stronger medication use and dependency.
And with us here on the ANIKFLORIAN podcast, KenFlo, in terms of medical cannabis versus recreational, I think it's important to note LEAFWELL is a medical company. It's not a recreational one, right? But you guys have helped people attack a lot of genuine health concerns, whether it's anxiety or depression. Can you speak to what particular conditions in which you've seen like the most benefit for people who have committed to medical cannabis use?
Now, we see about 15,000 patients per month across 37 states. And we've been, for the last 5 years, 500,000 lives. So we facilitate a lot of patient care. And I would say the top conditions are chronic pain, insomnia, anxiety, and PTSD. But I do want to note that, yes, there's medication, there's medical cannabis, and then there's recreational cannabis. But there's a fine line between, and recreational cannabis is therapeutic use. And when we find that states have legalized from medical cannabis to adult use cannabis or recreational cannabis, we actually see an uptick in patients calling us in wanting more therapeutic guidance. So there's an interesting play there.
Top 5 qualifying conditions for medical marijuana cards based on a sample of 15,000 LEAFWELL patients: anxiety, chronic pain, insomnia, post-traumatic stress disorder, and depression. And when I think about the value of cannabis in my life over the years, and certainly it hasn't been any sort of gateway, but, sometimes it's hard for me to pinpoint the extent to which maybe it has helped me with certain things, whether it's sleep, even whether it's with my creative writing, but I think there have been undeniable benefits. But I think people like me in the public eye have been reluctant at times to talk about that. Whereas if I can, align with a tequila, which is straight poison in my system, I can get an alcohol deal like yesterday.
Well, I think when we're looking at this movement towards plant-based medicine, we're realizing that anxiety, chronic pain, PTSD, depression, all of this is interrelated. If you're not sleeping well, your depression will get worse. Your chronic pain will get worse. If you've ever had a migraine and you didn't sleep well, your migraine is going to be worse the next day. So everything is interrelated. And when you look at cannabis medicine, when you look at the plant, it's both an anti-inflammatory, it's a pain reliever, right? So you're getting to the root cause of the issue, and it also elevates your mood. So when you think about the different things that this plant can do, yes, I could prescribe 4, 5, 6 different medications. I could prescribe Xanax, Ambien, a pain reliever, anti-inflammatory, or I can have the patient try a plant-based medicine first.
So to what extent, when you're in a classroom as a professor, are you teaching this, and what are some of the other things that you are teaching right now?
So I teach undergraduates at Syracuse, so you can actually major in cannabis science. I teach the pharmacokinetics, so basically why the cannabis medicine works in your body. At NYU, they're more graduate and professional students, so I might have a lawyer, a social worker, a physician, a lawyer, folks that want to understand cannabis, the science behind cannabis, and how they can apply it to their field.
So in terms of the obstacles that maybe you encountered early on in your career, to what extent did you have pause in sort of pushing through with this as far as your own professional development was concerned, knowing, right? Because we experienced it a little bit with mixed martial arts, right? Because it's still fighting. And there was a time when I was at ESPN and MMA was the redheaded stepchild. Kenny and I were fighting for this sport, and people were like, no, that's blood sport. You know what I mean? So I think there is a little bit of a parallel there. And I'd imagine at times you're like, oh, I don't know if I can fully commit to cannabis. We're glad you did.
Well, the first decade of my career as a young physician, I didn't tell anyone that I was helping patients integrate cannabis into their healthcare. So number one, I just didn't say anything. I didn't want to lose my license. I didn't want to be labeled as the pot doctor. But now I think, a few decades later, unfortunately, it took a few decades, things are really changing, and we see the science behind it. We have an FDA approved cannabis-based medicine called Epidiolex for seizures. So in the beginning, I could totally relate. I just kept my mouth shut. I helped patients, but I did not advertise it.
Where do you see things going in the next 5 years to 10 years, doctor? Do you see a more normalized perception of medical cannabis use?
Yeah, and we are already seeing it. I think when the cannabis medicine gets rescheduled, I think that's going to be a big step forward for dispensaries, for medical state organizations, so dispensaries that grow the medicine, cultivate and manufacture. And I see more research, more FDA-based cannabis medicine too.
Dr. Jun Chin with us rather fittingly on this Veterans Day edition of the Anik and Florian podcast. I'd imagine a lot of men and women who have served and fought for our country see the benefits to medical cannabis. How much crossover is there for you in terms of connecting with veterans who are leaning into medical cannabis to deal with their everyday lives and some of the challenges post-service?
Yeah, at Leafwell, we have mental health specialists, and a lot of VAs that come in will say, I've been on this antidepressant plus anti-anxiety medication for so long. I haven't gotten off of it, but it doesn't really help. I do find supplementing it with medical cannabis can help my acute panic attacks, instead of my Xanax. I find that it can help me better than my Ambien, for example. I don't feel as groggy the next day. And
Right.
sometimes I have, veterans that'll say, it just helps me be a little more comfortable in my own skin. Sometimes I'm just feeling really unsettled and I
Yeah.
just feel like crawling out of my skin, and the cannabis works a lot better than alcohol. I don't feel so dragged down the next day. And all I need is just a little bit to uplift my mood and to calm my nervous system down.
Yeah. I've taken one Xanax in my life. I will never take another one. That is for sure. That drug is not for me. The next day, I don't even know what planet I'm on. I don't know where I am. Leafwell, though, is a medical company. And if you have these genuine health concerns, it's an easy and risk-free process to get your card. 38 states are covered right now. You can get approved within minutes. Go to leafwell.com/Anik. Use promo code Anik, ANIK, for 20% off. It is better, I can assure you, to have a card and not need it than to need it and not have it. Dr. Jun Chin on Instagram. You can follow the company at Leafwell, and you can follow Dr. Chin at Dr. Jun Chin. That has links as well to a lot of your work. I did a deep dive this morning. The book, Cannabis and CBD for Health and Wellness. Dr. Chin, thank you. Great stuff. We appreciate you joining us today, and hopefully we can connect maybe in the next few months and see how things are going. But we appreciate your time very much.
Thank you so much. And before I wrap up, I'd love to give a special shout out to the fighters that show their support for medical cannabis: Nate Diaz, Sean O'Malley, Justin Gaethje, and all the fighters breaking the stigma around cannabis. And of course, we can't forget Elias Theodoro and everything that he contributed to advancing this medicine. So thank you so much both for having me today.
You're giving me chills dropping that Elias Theodoro reference on the way out. Doctor, that is very kind of you to not just mention all of those athletes, but Elias remains firmly in our hearts and minds a lot of the time. Dr. June Chin, the company is Leafwell. We appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
All right, Leafwell's Dr. June Chin, Chief Medical Officer, joining us today here live on the program. And a lot of good information in terms of medical cannabis and its value. So some good stuff there. All right, so I was sort of shortchanged the John Jones, Stipe Miocic bitch reference a little bit, right? So in the Countdown special, they referenced Stipe was sitting there with his lovely wife Ryan, and John Jones at UFC 285 beats Cito Gane, and he says, you know, I know the UFC puts on the fights, and Stipe said something about, you know, John Jones being a bitch, whatever the fuck he said. I mean, Stipe is pretty innocent guy, right? But John is now saying here during fight week that he's going to wish he didn't say that. So I hate to say like finally, but it is nice because without this, Kenny, I mean, John Jones historically doesn't even look his opponent in the eyes. He has said they're part of his journey. It's not about them. But can I be a little bit promotionally excited that, you know, we have something now to work off of?
It's both a blessing and a curse, because in doing something like that and in causing this friction between yourself and someone like John Jones, I think it builds more interest, right? Like, oh, okay, I like it. I like this spice here. But potentially you awaken a giant in John Jones. It's like, do not give that guy any fuel to want to hurt you anymore. And, you know, John Jones's eyes have changed since that comment, I think.
Yeah. So John Jones at one point in time came out to a song called Angry Johnny by Poe.
Yes.
And I strongly encourage you to figure out what walkout it was, because I couldn't actually find it, but to go find that song. I have talked to John Jones about this song, but he kind of buried Angry Johnny, and that's why he doesn't walk out to that song anymore. He's just not an angry guy. And if you've ever seen a John Jones walkout, you know he's smiling ear to ear. It's an incredibly electric thing when he walks out, just the way he fills that tunnel. Stipe, I guess, said it on Countdown sitting in an interview, Cody tells me. So we'll see the extent to which that gets brought up at the press conference. A few other things before we get to Aiemann Zahabi, KenFlo. Bitcoin went over 82,000 this morning.
Yes, it's past 84,000, on its way to 85, my friend. So we get your moon boots, kid.
Well, so you actually sent a text, if I could, to me and my brother when it was at 79, and you said we might need to get back in here, boys. And yeah, I mean, I didn't make the deposit, and here we are, and it's over 85. But yeah, man, I just need to be buying this shit like every week, regardless of price. I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, I'm glad you guys trusted me on that investment.
No, I'm right. I mean, what kind of gift are we send you? A Boston coffee cake or something, KenFlo, at the very least. All right, one other thing that I just wanted to get to, if I could, perhaps a little bit self-indulgent, but I wanted to shout out the referee Drew in my daughter's soccer game this weekend. So, man, this UFC fan base trends so young. So it's halftime of this game, and the referee comes over to me and he says, "Hey, Mr. Anik, I just wanted to introduce myself. I heard you screaming from the sidelines. I thought you were going to drop a Dateline Abu Dhabi on everybody, you know?" So I walk up to this amazing individual after the game, and I said, "Hey, man, what's your T-shirt size? Medium or large? Because I want to bring you a shirt next weekend, you know, because you'll be back reffing the games." He's like, "You're not going to be here next weekend. You'll be with John Jones in New York City." I'm like, man, this guy's completely locked in. I'm talking about next Saturday's game, and he was wise enough to tell me I wasn't even going to be there. But it did provide an important reminder for me. And I have talked on the program a little bit in the past about worries of mine that I'm going to be that obnoxious coaching or sporting parent.
Yeah.
And earlier in the game, this referee, who is a huge supporter of mine, you know, I felt like he was a little bit late on the trigger for an offsides call. So I screamed close to the top of my lungs, like, "Linesman's all over it," you know? And then the next thing you know, this referee's coming up to me and saying Dateline Abu Dhabi. So I just need to be a little bit careful with my treatment of officials and But I do
So
feel
good.
like these girls need vocal support and encouragement. And if I'm going to be the loudest non-coach, then that's the way it's going to be. Now
Love it.
with us as we go back out to the guest line, and we are very happy to have this man with us, perhaps a week too late, but he has a number 14 next to his name. That's why we waited. We wanted to see just how high this fucking ranking was going to be. The number 14 ranked bantamweight contender, representing the great TriStar Gym, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, Aiemann Zahabi. Aiemann, John Anik, Kenny Florian. Great to see you, brother. Congratulations. How we feeling?
Let's go. Oh, yes. Look at that.
Hey, can you hear him, KenFlo? I'm having a hard time.
I
You got
cannot
it?
hear him.
Thank you guys.
Here-
Great to
there
be
he
here,
is.
man. I'm
Okay.
excited to talk to you guys.
There he is.
Awesome.
Well, congratulations, man. I know you haven't lost a fight in more than 5 years, but 5 straight wins in the UFC and a number next to your name. It's a tremendous accomplishment, you know, because in this division, it's very hard to realize a world title. But this is the step, and getting a number is exceedingly difficult. I'd imagine you are feeling kind of on top of the world after what you accomplished just 10 days or so ago.
Yeah, I feel incredible. You know, it's a big accomplishment for me. I feel like part of the reason why I got the number was also like how I beat him. I feel like I outclassed him. You know, my face looks real good. You know, me and Kenny GSP, you know, we know about the jab. You know, we want a thing or two about the jab. You know, so I was really happy that I was able to do that and come out unscathed, especially for like my wife and kids. And I'm hoping that, you know, they give me an even smaller number next time. You know, I'm going to fight somebody with a good name.
Aiemann, you know, obviously I've been seeing you in the gym for a very long time, man, and you've been knocking on that door for a while. It seemed like everything kind of really came together for you. Was it this camp in particular, or is it, I mean, obviously it's the years that you've been putting into it, but what's different about Aiemann Zahabi right now?
I mean, Firas put me through hell.
Yeah.
You did. Good.
Yeah. And then like it's funny because after I won, he told me, he's like, if you thought that was hard, wait for the next camp. And I was just like, yeah, here we go. And I was back in the gym on Monday. Even like Saturday, went straight to the hotel room, watched the fight over to figure out what went wrong, what went well, and what can we build off of. And then just back to work. I've been in the gym every day, but only once a day. And I've been like, you know, shadow boxing and working on a few things just to brush up a couple of mistakes and just cleaning it up, you know, but just getting back in slowly.
So is Firas taking it easy on you because you're his brother, or is he putting a little bit more, I don't know, pressure or pain on his little brother? I think it's probably the latter, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's putting all the pain on me, that's for sure. And I'm happy because you know, Rob Font joined the team, and
Right.
so we've been doing the training camps in parallel. It worked out. We're only a couple of weeks apart, so you know, it's nice to have someone in the ranking too that's going side by side with me. You know, like iron sharpens iron, so it's been great having him with me. He's a great guy, very consistent in his training, and I'm happy to have him. And you know, I'm just looking forward to what I can accomplish next if I can get that much better. For us, thinks, you know, there's a lot of room for improvement. So I'm hoping that you know, he's my Phil Jackson. You know, he's my guy. So I'm hoping he pushes me even further.
Aiemann Zahabi with us here live on the Anik and Florian podcast. So here's what you wrote about your brother, Firas Zahabi, on Instagram after the fact. And I brought this to the show in part because Kenny and I are exceedingly close with our brothers. God bless me with an amazing brother. A huge thank you to Firas for pouring his heart and soul into my journey. Your dedication and sacrifices have made all the difference in reaching the top 15 in the UFC. I'm so lucky to have you by my side. I'm wondering if you can speak to the sacrifice a little bit, because I know how much you have sacrificed, and Kenny is so happy that you're realizing all this success. But when you think about Firas's brotherly sacrifice here, what exactly is front of mind for you when you think about all he's devoted to your career?
Like if you were in training camp with us, you'd realize how on edge my brother gets, because you know, I'm his baby brother. That's why I put that picture of, you know, like now when you see us side by side, you don't realize the age difference. You know, there's an 8-year difference. I'm like, he raised me like he's my father. So I kind of put that picture so people have an idea of like how much he's into it. And, you know, he watches tape, he studies, he's always looking for the next big thing that we need to work on. What's the modern game of jiu-jitsu going towards? Like, how can we stick to the modern game? And he's always looking for how can we improve striking? Like, you know, if you watch me fight, my striking, I'm not a kickboxer, I'm not a boxer, I'm not a Muay Thai, I don't fit in any mold. You know, I take like the best pieces of of the different styles. I'm basically shapeless and formless, you know, and Firas really works on making sure that I fight to the tactics that needed for my opponent. And, you know, he pours himself in the research, and I just have to do the labor. I have to do the work, you know, and I like that he doesn't, you know, I'm also doing some thinking, but, you know, he does a lot more of the thinking. And in terms of finances too, you know, if I've never needed any sponsors, really like big money sponsors, to really come help out, because, you know, Frost has always got my back. And him having the connections in the MMA world, we have access to a lot of different training partners that can fly in and help us out. So it's a nice to have for us, because he's great connections and he's very supportive, and he gives his body on, he puts his body on the line. Like, we're hitting pads 5 days a week and sometimes twice in a day, and I hit like a truck, boys, let me tell you. I had one day for us wasn't there because he had to go corner two guys who were fighting on 2 separate cards in a week. So one of my other cornermen held pads for me, and the guy couldn't move for 3 days after.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Frost is just doing it for 3 months straight, you know, so it's interesting. And I'm not the only guy he holds pads for.
Of course. Kenny, was it the last 3 or 4 of your fights that Firas Zahabi was your chief corner?
Yes. After BJ Penn, I started working with Firas on a full-time basis. And, you know, he's a brilliant, brilliant dude who's always researching, like Aiemann said. And he helped me in my career a lot.
Yeah, your brother, and you too, but he's a total gangster and a genius, and he has this aura about him. It's not that I get starstruck around Firas Zahabi, but I do get a little bit starstruck around that man, you know? So outside of martial arts, I'd imagine there are a lot of things that you're better than your brother at, right? What's one thing that you are better than Firas at?
Well, people say I'm more handsome. That's for one. Listen,
well, that's key.
He's not gonna accept this, but I'm better than him at Madden, and I'm better than him at Street Fighter 2. Okay, and I'm willing to put that on the line. If he wants to stream it, I'm ready to stream it, man. We play back to back. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But you know, we've been playing, we've been competing our whole lives. That's how brothers are. We're 4 brothers growing up.
Right.
We've been at each other's throats, whether it's you know, grappling, wrestling, striking, video games, running, jumping, whatever.
Right.
So there's always a few things, you know, always very competitive, but also always in a really good way. But yeah, no, definitely. But you know, he'll always tell everyone that he has a higher IQ than me. That's for sure.
Aiemann Zahabi with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. I think you're like 8 days in front of your 37th birthday. Is that accurate?
Yeah, but I feel great. I feel 27, boys. I don't feel
well, right.
37 at all.
Yeah. No,
I mean, you're my wife. I'm like, yo, you better get in shape because I feel young. Like, you better not get old on me, baby.
That's
you gotta
good.
get in shape because this boy's getting younger.
Well, right. And in terms of the MMA miles, there have been some injuries that have resulted in some time off, but last loss 2019. And yeah, in fine fettle, as the Brits would say, at 37 years of age. So in terms of your next fight, it is interesting because Rob Font is a guy potentially that would have showed up in your bracket. Now, of course, you guys are teammates and you're not going to fight, but there are several things working in your favor when it comes to the matchmaking process. Chief among them, you now have a number next to your name, which opens up a lot of fights. I don't have to tell you that. The Zahabi surname obviously rings true with a lot of people, but most important might just be the 5-fight winning streak, which is going to be appealing for one of these other bantamweights to try to end it. So of the names that are out there, some are off a loss, some are off a win, but bro, they're all big names, whether it's Corey Sandhagen or Jose Aldo or Marlon Chito Vera, Henry Cejudo. What can you tell us as to a timeline and who you realistically think is going to be the name or two that might show up in your bracket?
Yeah, you know, like it might sound selfish, but I think because of my 5-fight win streak, I want somebody with a smaller number. Like, I'm not ready to give a guy a chance that's behind me.
Right.
I want somebody ahead of me. You know, like I know sometimes the top 15 guys, like between 10 and 15, they usually fight guys behind them, like outside the top 15. But I think with the momentum, let's go forward. You know, like give me another chance for forward momentum. And I'm really excited because they said that they're coming in. There's a rumor that they're coming first quarter of next year to Canada. So if they are, I would really like that because I feel like I've been really blowing up my name in Canada, especially with the last 2 performances here. So ideally, it would be a bigger name with a lower number in Canada. That's what I want.
I don't want to do any Canada Canadian on Canadian crime right here. But let me just
Yeah.
ask you, I didn't plan this at all, but
Yeah.
Mike Malott, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, he responded really well to that loss. He's a great
Yeah.
fucking guy, right? But is any part of Aiemann Zahabi, as Mike Malott is getting all of this shine and getting featured on pay-per-view, thinking like, I've fucking been here and done that. I got a winning streak too. Like, what about me? Is any part of you thinking like, hey, man, I can carry the torch for Canada? Because there were times when talking heads like me were talking about Mike Malott, and maybe we should have been talking about you.
Yeah, you know, like obviously there's no hate towards Mike because he can't control it. But I saw him in the lobby after we both won our fights in Edmonton, and I told him something that I realized only during fight week. When I finished media day on the Wednesday for fight week, and I did the scrum and I did all the interviews, I came out there feeling so hyped because everyone was so nice to me because I had won 4 straight. Then I came to the realization that the media is a double-edged sword. When you do bad and they talk trash about you, they cut you. When you do good and they hype you, if you believe that hype, it cuts you. Because if you develop that ego, you're going to underestimate your guy. You're not going to fight to your potential.
Right.
So if I truly believe they don't know much about fighting because they've never done it, I can't believe them when they speak well about me, and I can't believe them when they talk bad about me. And that's what I told Mike Malott.
Right.
I said, listen, brother, they talk trash about you. Don't forget they threw you on the bus. And now just because they're going to talk good about you now doesn't mean you get the right to believe them. Don't believe them either way. The only people you believe is your coaching staff, your teammates, and other people, your peers like me. I see the potential in you. My brother sees the potential. These are the guys that have opinions that weigh something.
Yeah.
So good or bad, I don't care what the media says about me. I'm going to just keep trucking along.
Yeah.
And I believe in myself and my team believes in me. And we know where we're headed.
In part, you are now media, though, and I'm curious how you've navigated. Right? No, we were going to get to your television career, your budding TV career, but how have you navigated being critical of fighters? I've had a lot of conversations with Anthony Smith about this, who's still on the active roster, and he's not being paid to make friends. I know maybe American TV is a little bit different than what you're experiencing right now, but how are you navigating the very real reality, I guess, for lack of a better word, that you have to criticize your fellow fighters now?
Yeah, that's the toughest part. So I try to do it from like a coach's perspective. Like I talk to them, like when I'm doing the media, when I'm doing the analyst job, I speak to them as if I'm their coach. Because even as their coach, I have to tell them what's up, but I have to do it in a way that doesn't discourage them. Right. So I'm going to tell them, hey, listen, man, this isn't working too well. This is kind of what you got to look forward to. So there's advice with the criticism in a way, just to like soften the blow. And because like even like on Saturday, I did a live. And I'm not gonna lie, I think the Ritter's performance was a little bit lackluster. I never watched him fight before, but I was shocked about how he takes punches. I didn't think he took them super well.
Yeah.
And Amir Khan's not a big striker. I didn't like his cardio, man. They were both fatigued, holding each other's hands, laying down in the octagon. How long did it take for them to stand up?
Right.
You know, I mean, it's obviously not great for me. Like, I don't want to bump into them and they want to fight me.
Sure.
But you know, I have to tell them like, hey, man, listen, this is the truth. The UFC is not ONE FC. You're here with the big dogs now, and I mean that in the most positive way. But if anybody ever needs advice, I'm always there to give it. You know.
Well, I love listening to you, and I really think that you should set the goals high as far as what you can do in television, because I really think that you have a lot of potential there. All right, a couple quick hit questions on the way out with the budding UFC bantamweight contender, Aiemann Zahabi, 36 going on 27. All right, toughest matchup for you at 135 pounds of these 3 guys: Merab Dvalishvili, Umar Nurmagomedov, or Sean O'Malley. Toughest guy of those 3 for you to beat?
I'm assuming Umar, because he's got 2 out of 3. I feel like Merab only has 1, you know, and I think the least would be Sean O'Malley.
All right, greatest bantamweight of all time: Dominic Cruz, Aljamain Sterling, or somebody else?
Dominic Cruz.
All right, and then fact or fiction: your next opponent comes out of these 4 names: Jose Aldo, Marlon Chito Vera, Henry Cejudo, Corey Sandhagen.
That would be sick.
I'm trying.
I'll be sick. I'm hoping. You know,
I mean,
those guys
I
are
know.
ahead of me.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I know the Song Yadong fight would be fun too, but I have 4 big names here, and I think they're all within the realm of possibility. You know,
they're all for, you know, it'd be great. You know, I even like backstage this last time, because you know, like obviously I have these mantras, right, for every fight and things like that. And one of my mantras was I love the pain. That another fight, it was I love the fear. And for us, like this time backstage, like before we walked out, I had finished all my warm up, and I'm just like pacing, ready to make the walk on my own. And Frost was telling me my old mantra is to like, like to relieve my stress. And he's like, you don't forget, you love the pain, you love the fear. It's gonna set you free. And I walked up to him, I went to shake his hand. I'm like, I'm living the dream, baby. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. And I had never felt so sure that I've got my game down pat. I'm gonna go out there and I'm just gonna live the dream. I'm gonna live it now.
We're thrilled for you, man. Well, pain is your
Thank you, man.
mistress as you continue to embrace the journey and live the
Yeah,
dream. He is Aiemann
baby, it's
Zahabi
true.
on Instagram at Aiemann Zahabi, spelled AIEMANN. My man, continued success on all fronts. And I just hope I get the assignment the next time that you're competing. I hope it's live on pay-per-view, but you deserve everything that you have earned, my man. And we're happy to have 15 minutes with you today, young man. All right, I don't know if we lost it, but that was my outro. There he is.
Guys, if anybody wants to learn from Faraz, you can check out jujiclub.com.
jujiclub.com.
Congrats, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, guys. See you.
All right, there he is, the UFC bantamweight contender, Aiemann Zahabi, after a big win in Edmonton against Pedro Munoz. KenFlo can't stop smiling. It's really incredible when you think about, I don't know if it was the Ricardo Ramos loss in 2019 or whatever it was, 5 straight wins for this kid and talking like he's got legitimate championship aspirations.
Yeah, well, I've always seen a lot of potential in Aiemann, and obviously so well coached. And this is a guy who really puts in the work, really has done the homework, and now getting that experience. It's one thing to do it in the gym. It's another to do it in the cage. He's now doing it in the cage, and I expect big things from him, man.
One of the toughest things for a now ranked contender like Aiemann Zahabi can be to get that next big fight, right? And
yeah.
Right. He doesn't care if it's Corey Sandhagen coming off a loss. Just give me one of those big names. And we've talked in the past about the Iron Lung, Paul Felder. I think he got as high as number 6 or 7 in the world, but he could never get that Dustin Poirier or Justin Gaethje fight that might have opened things up financially and otherwise. And I love seeing Team Zahabi celebrate this ranking and this 5-fight winning streak, because not everybody can be a world champion, right? Now the question is, can he get that big fight against one of those big names and win that fight, and then you're off and running?
So this sport is brutal, man, and it's never been tougher. And to be ranked in the UFC is a big effing deal. Yeah.
All right. Thanks to Aiemann Zahabi. We now go 3 wide once again as we welcome on our chief handicapper. He is Big Gun Brian Petrie, off another big week. How we doing, man? Tough one for the Bengals. God.
Hey, yeah, another 1-score loss. Had it again. But yeah, we keep moving. We don't talk about that, John.
Part of me brings it up in the context of your sweatshirt, right?
Yeah, I'm always rocking Bengals.
Cincinnati, Ohio, but I still kind of think you could take a flyer on the Bengals to win the whole goddamn thing on any given Sunday with number 9 spinning it,
I tell you, number 9's having an MVP-like year.
Yeah.
Our defense are great first half. If they just kept it up, we would have won the game. But yeah, that's the breaks. Yeah, but I wore this out the other day and some guy goes, man, I wouldn't be wearing that hoodie. It's like, what am I supposed to just burn all my clothes because we lost a fucking game,
come on.
Get out of here.
All right, so pronunciation of the week is back.
Yeah.
So I've got a few files today, and we will get through them expeditiously. Well, the only one that you prepared for was a young lady competing in the first fight of the night. She'll take on Veronica Hardy.
Yeah.
She fights out of Salvador Bahia, Brazil. Same camp as Jailton Almeida. Galpao Luta. She is 1-1 in the UFC. And we just would like to hear you pronounce this Brazilian name as best you could.
It looks pretty simple to me, right? I will admit the only person I've heard say her name is Bruce Buffer, so I don't know if that's a great thing to hear. I'm going to go Eduarda Moura.
So that's pretty good. I do wonder what Buffer's lifetime percentage of accurate pronunciations is. 40? All right, so Eduarda Moura, I think you're pretty good. Let's hear how she says it.
Eduarda Moura. Eduarda Moura.
Let's get Eduarda. She just
she does. Yeah. KenFlo, she holds that. Eduarda.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's more of an accent thing than it is necessarily a pronunciation thing. I give it to BP. That's a hit for me.
Circle gets the square. We also have the file of your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, Charles do Bronx Oliveira, as we go full throttle Brazilian Portuguese. But I just want you guys to hear Charles in all of his glory saying his name, Cody. If we have that file, you can trigger it anytime.
Charles Oliveira da Silva. Charles Oliveira da Silva.
I get nervous just hearing him say his name. Maybe that means I'm excited for 309.
I think it is. I think that's
All
what
right.
it means.
And then we have two other files. People having a hard time with these, incidentally. Cody, let's get to the next one.
John Jones. John Jones.
Yeah.
Does he not sound like a complete savage? Can you give me that John Jones again?
John Jones. John Jones.
He's in a Netflix movie now, and
Yeah.
he has taken that voice right to the big screen because he's got a great theatrical voice. Like John Jones could get voiceover work immediately. All right, and then our final file, and you got to listen this through the whole thing. It's actually not our final file, but it is kind of for right now. Just listen to Jim Miller's whole file right now, because Jim Miller, I mean, part of the reason they record it is because there are people who live in countries outside of the United States of America that need to know if it's Heem Miller or whatever it is. So let's listen to Jim.
Jim Miller. Jim
Cody,
Miller.
you keep cutting him off.
Dan Miller. Dan Miller.
You see he drops a Dan Miller?
Shout his brother out.
I always thought he was a Jimothy. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, they keep getting cut off. All right, we have 8 fights to break down. There are 13 fights right now at UFC 309. 3 prelims, 5 main card selections. First prelim, fellas. Brian, we will start with you on this one at lightweight. Damon Jackson, -135. The aforementioned Jim Miller is +114. So Jackson's last fight came 2 days after his 36th birthday. It was the unanimous decision loss to Chepe Mariscal. We had him on the show. Of course, KenFlo talked about all the circumstances surrounding that fight. Feels like the UFC is rewarding him here by giving him one of the bigger names of his career, at least on paper, in the Iron Man Jim Miller. BP, close at least on the betting front. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, this could be a dogfight, boys. These boys are going to go after it. It seems like Damon Jackson, when he got his hair fixed in Turkey, they might have put a little something in his chin too, because this dude, hasn't been knocked out a little bit, and he was a little durability issue. But no, this guy is an exciting fighter. His striking's good. His grappling is good. But he's going to run into a guy, Jim Miller, who I think is better grappling everywhere. Damon Jackson's a little bit longer, maybe has some better scrambles, but Jim Miller has seen it all. He's coming off a kind of a one-sided beating. And listen, it wasn't maybe one-sided, but if you look at the stats, it looks one-sided against King Green, which was a very fun fight. Bloody as all get out, but Jim Miller's a warrior. He's a dog in there. You're not going to get too many Jim Miller fights left. And I'll be damned if I pick against Jim Miller in this close of a spot here at the dog money. I'm dancing with Jimmy Miller. Give me Jim.
Jim Miller +114 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. KenFlo turned 41 in August, extending his record here. UFC appearance number 45. He will also look to extend his record for UFC wins. He's got 26 of those, KenFlo. What do you think about Jimmy Miller here plus money this weekend?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. I think both are just about even when it comes to the striking game. I think the person who wins this fight is probably going to be the better takedown guy, the better wrestler. And who that is, I'm not exactly sure. I think clinch fighting is going to be crucial as well. When you get a fight this close, I think a good way to go is always kind of going with the underdog. So I totally understand the Jim Miller pick by Brian Petrie. I'll lean the way of Damon Jackson just because of the age. And both kind of, suffer a little bit from consistency issues. But I'm going to lean the way of Damon Jackson.
All right, next prelim for us to break down is at middleweight. Eric Anders -142, Chris Weidman +120. So last finish for Chris Weidman, this is something that I look at. Not that either one of these guys has necessarily been prolific finishers of late, but last finish for Weidman, Uniondale, New York, 2017 against Kelvin Gastelum. He is 0-2 at MSG. Eric Anders, 37 years of age, Bri. We don't know how much he's going to compete beyond Saturday night either, but he did look pretty good against Jamie Pickett back in March. Another close one on paper here at 85, BP. Who do you like?
Man, I hate picking Chris Weidman fights at this point in his career. I love Chris Weidman. Obviously, we're friends with Ray Longo. I got Long Island in my blood, and it's tough picking against Chris Weidman. I'm going to go with your boy. Weidman's my boy, but I'm going to go with your boy. Eric Anders. Weidman just needs to go back to his old school wrestling, grappling roots if he wants to win this fight. I just don't see it happening. Eric Anders, 78% takedown defense, has looked really good if someone takes him down, and he gets up really well. They're both not the fastest guys at 185. They're not going to light up the scoreboard, but Anders does throw a little more volume, has a really good left hand. Chris's defense is left to be a little desired there. I thought he looked very good against Bruno Silva. He battled back. He rallied in that dogfight. I know there was a lot of weird fouls or what you want to call it, but I think he looked much better than the Brad Tavares fight. I just think Eric Anders, he's gonna have a little bit of an extra gear here, and he's gonna put it on Chris. Hopefully, it's a decision win for Anders, because I don't want to see Chris get put out. But yeah, I can't find my way on the Weidman side. Give me Eric Anders.
Nicely diplomatically delivered, Brian Petrie. KenFlo, Chris Weidman, Eric Anders. Weidman plus 120 or so right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. Your thoughts?
Yeah, interesting. You know, and maybe my memory is off. I thought that Chris did quite well against Bruno Silva. And, you know, is Eric Anders a better fighter than Bruno Silva? I'm not sure. You know, I think that both are dangerous and good at different things. You know, I think Chris looked way better. I think we'll see an even better version on Saturday night against Eric Anders. And while Eric can get things done, I think if he does get it done, probably by decision. But I like Chris Weidman here. I think there's value here with him being the underdog, and I think he's ready to rock.
All right, that brings us to the featured prelim in the bantamweight division. This is a fight a lot of people are talking about, BP. Marcus McGee, 3-0 in the UFC thus far, and here the minus 135 betting favorite against Jonathan Martinez, who comes back plus 114. We'll see if J-Mott can respond in kind to what I felt was a disappointing loss to Jose Aldo at UFC 301 in Rio back in May. What do we think, Brian? McGee or Martinez for you?
All I know is Kenny's usually a little more ruthless when it comes to the Longo guys he picks against him. He takes the Chris side. He goes with his Carolina boy. It makes me look like an asshole. I love it. Listen, this is a great fight. Marcus McGee surprised me when he came to the UFC against Jeremy Newsom. I did not think he had the level that he had. I heard good things about him in the room out over there in Arizona, but I didn't think he was this guy. He's that guy, dude. He's bricked up. He has big power, and he can win anywhere. And Jonathan Martinez is very technical, right? A little disappointing against Jose Aldo, but Jose Aldo's a stud. I mean, what are we going to do with Jose Aldo? But Martinez has really good low kicks, a knee up the middle. He times it beautifully. Hands are still coming along, but his takedown offense is really good too. So this is a really tough. This is where you're sitting on the fence, where it's technique on Martinez's side versus power on McGee's side. Not saying McGee doesn't have power, but he's the powerful guy. And for some reason, my dumb Midwestern gut is going, there's no debating here. It's McGee. So for whatever reason, I'm all over McGee at minus 135. I like the low number here. I think he might just outwork and outpace and land some big shots on Jonathan Martinez, who has been put out before. So I think it's going to be a good night for Marcus McGee.
KenFlo McGee repping the MMA lab, of course. Incredible bantamweight room. Kyler Phillips, Mario Bautista, Sean O'Malley, Raul Rosas Jr. spar there as well. Maybe it is McGee's time to shine. He is 34 years of age. Kenny, 9-1 as a pro, going for a 6th straight win here. Martinez had that 6-fight win streak not all that long ago. Big things at 35. KenFlo, your mic is hot.
Well, Martinez is not an easy out for anybody in that division. I think he has a great leg kicking game. And was really out experienced and outboxed by the veteran Jose Aldo in his last fight. And I think Marcus McGee is much more than just power. I mean, he certainly is fast. He's got a lot of weapons. He's got a lot of tools. We saw him against Bolaños, the Dream Killer, hit that beautiful wheel kick. So he's got a lot of different spinning attacks and things. But more than anything else, you know, hearing him talk, this is a very intelligent individual who is committed to the game. He's a student of the game, and I like his momentum heading into this. This is by far the most difficult fight of his career, but I like McGee here, and I think McGee could fight for the belt one day. I do think he's that good and well-schooled, and I like McGee.
Great way to lead into the pay-per-view, is it not? What a great featured prelim that forecast to be. All right, main card opener at lightweight, Mauricio Rufy is minus 750, taking on Hamas Yontop, who is plus 525. So, Bri, this looks like James Lontop on paper. Let's hear this file if we could, so people don't think I'm crazy.
James
John Top. James John Top.
James Jan Top is plus
James.
525. And this is a career opportunity for him, Bri. 25-year-old Peruvian. You like that, KenFlo? Peruvian. He's 0-2 in the UFC, and he is getting a crack at one of this division's top prospects. Bloated betting line BP. How do you see it playing out?
Oh, man. Listen, Lon Top was a guy who I looked at a little bit when he came out of the Contender Series. There were some good things coming out of Peru. Peru's got some really good fighters coming out right now, and he was one of them. Good striker, 25 years old, young, right? Tough as all get out. But he's been a little flat in UFC, which is fine. You're a young guy, you know, that you're finding your footing. But Rufy, that's how you say his last name, Rufy, right?
Yeah, like the drug that you put in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
For some reason, with the Brazilian and the R's, I thought it was Huffy or something. I didn't know. I'm glad I said Rufy. This motherfucker is quickly becoming one of my favorite fighters on the Contender Series and his debut. This dude is smooth on the feet. He's come from the Fighting Nerds where those motherfuckers don't lose. Big guy for this division. Kind of reminds me striking prime Conor McGregor-esque when Conor was like on top. He has that kind of flow state with him, which is just beautiful to watch. I'm all over Rufy here. I think Lon Top, much respect. He can come in and steal all this dude's hype, say, I know I'm 0-2 in the UFC. I'm 25 years old. I'm stepping up on short notice. I'm going to go take all this dude's hype, right? I love that. I love that mentality. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Rufy is as good a fight for the title one day. I think this dude is legit. I have friends texting me after the last time he fought, like, who the fuck is this guy? So I'm glad they got him opponent, and I think he's going to do work and look great Saturday night.
Yeah, KenFlo BP not the only one to compare this striker to Conor McGregor. His UFC debut against Jamie Malaki, of course, spectacular. Also shined on the Contender Series last year. And now fighting on a numbered card yet again, but this time not on the early prelims, but live on pay-per-view. Your thoughts on this one between Rufy, minus 750, and Jan Top, plus 525.
If you guys think for 1 second that I'm going to go against the Peruvian,
here we go.
Jan Top, with that warrior mentality, with that Peruvian blood.
Get him, Kenny.
You're probably right. I like Rufy, man. This dude's serving up Rufy coladas, okay? He's putting people out left and right. His striking is phenomenal. And it's not only his striking that looks similar to Conor McGregor. He carries that same confident demeanor where it almost seems like everything's happening in slow motion in front of him, and he's moving at a completely different speed. So there's certainly something special about him. He's with the right team, and as much as it pains me to go against the Peruvian Jan Top, I think Rufy's going to be something special in the future. Would not be surprised to see him fighting for the belt in a couple years anyway. So this dude's, I mean, what he was calling out, like he was already criticizing and calling out Islam Makhachev already. I mean, I love it. He's setting the stage because I think him and his team understand that he's a little bit different.
And I'm not sure any man has sounded sexier saying Jan Top than you did about 30 seconds.
All
right, next up, women's flyweight division, number 11, Karine Silva, minus 285, taking on 9th-ranked Viviane Araújo, who is plus 230. So, little behind-the-scenes intel here. When Rose Namajunas needed an opponent for that 5-round fight in Denver in July, Karine Silva was a top choice of Mick Maynard at the time. Ultimately, they went with Tracy Cortez. But Silva's right there, 4-0 in the UFC. She's looking to take Araújo's spot in the top 10. And Silva's the big favorite here this weekend on pay-per-view. BP, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a good step up for Silva. Silva has 4 or 5 fights in the UFC, 4 of the finishes. She's coming off a decision winner last time out. She's looked really fucking good. She gets the fight to the ground. She dominates on the feet. She's really good at her own pace, her own distance, and being a young fighter. I really like that. I really respect that. And she's fighting a good competition here. Viviane Araújo. You know, Kenny's not the only one who can say names around here, guys. Viviane Araújo. She's fought everybody. She's been in there with everybody, has looked good, has never been finished in the UFC. I would love to see Karine Silva get a finish here, really stamp her. You know, Kenny's not the only one with tricks, boys. Give me Silva. I'm very confident in this as well. I wish the number was a little lower. I understand why it's not, because Silva's the real deal, but I wish we can get a cheaper price. That's just me being a gambling mind, but I like Silva a lot.
And can we get you to say Curitiba versus Brasilia? Because that's what we have here.
Curitiba versus Brasilia. I mean, that's all I got. Yeah, it's not bad. Huh?
Look at you, man. Just lightening up this entire room. KenFlo Curitiba on one side, Brasilia on the other. Araujo fighting out of the nation's capital. She is 6-5 in the UFC. She has fought 5 former title challengers. She also went 5 rounds with Alexa Grasso in 2022. Experience to be sure, but she has lost 3 of 4. Your thoughts on Karine Silva here taking on Viviane Araujo?
Yeah, listen, I think Araujo is a very good fighter. I think she's really tough. She's going to get in the face of Karine Silva. I just think Karine Silva's dope. She does dope things. I think she's extremely technical. She's extremely composed. And she, too, is one of those Brazilians that I see competing for the belt at some point. She's big for the division, man. She's going to be a problem. And as good as Araujo is, I just think Silva's a little bit better, or maybe a lot of bit better in pretty much every single area. So I think it's going to be fun while it lasts, though. But give me Karine Silva.
All right, right back to KenFlo here to lead us off on what is a featured bout in the middleweight division. And this time, Bo Nickel, not charged with opening the pay-per-view, moves down the card, still finds himself as a massive betting favorite, of course. Nickel minus 1,000. Paul Berju Craig is plus 650. So first 3 UFC fights for Bo Nickel, as you guys know, he was in the pay-per-view opener, massive pressure spot, only needed the stool 1 time, a couple of round 1 wins, then round 2 against Cody Brundage. Didn't need the stool for either of his contender series fights either. Pretty unstoppable, Kenny, even if he was a little bit dissatisfied with his last win. What are your thoughts on him here? Minus 1,000 against 18-time UFC veteran Paul Craig.
You know, when you've competed at such a high level like Bo Nickel has in the sport of wrestling, you know, competing at the international level, of course, right? I mean, you're going to see all the different levels of the game, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, and you're going to understand that there is constant improvement involved when you're doing anything at a high level. You got to be there or you get left behind, especially when you're talking about one-on-one competition. And I don't think Bo Nickel is, you know, upset about his last performance because he's trying to act like he's a big deal or anything. He means it. He was not happy because he knew that he could do better. However, getting back to that stool, I think, is important when it comes to experience. He needs that. You do not want to be going into big fights only having experienced like 3 minutes of total time in the UFC. It's just not a good place to be. So I think it's a good thing ultimately. Paul Craig is going to be dangerous off of his back, and that's probably where he's going to be at some point, either by getting knocked down by Bo Nickel or getting taken down by Bo Nickel. You got to watch out for his arm bars. You got to watch out for those long legs, snatching up triangles and things like that. But Bo Nickel is going to be a problem there as well. So long as he keeps good positioning there, I see Bo Nickel being absolutely dominant in this fight. And because he doesn't have a whole lot of experience, him and his team have done a great job thus far in taking the right fights at the right time. Paul Craig is not an easy fight, but it's the right fight at the right time.
Paul Craig wins over Magomed Ankalaev and Jamal Hill. He's 9-8-1 in the UFC. And it's impossible for me to think that Bo Nickel's going to lose 8 times, no matter how long his UFC career goes or doesn't. Yeah. But Paul Craig is 6'4". He's a former light heavyweight. He's fought 5 former light heavyweight champions or title challengers. And on paper, Bri, clearly Nickel's toughest MMA challenge to date. But Bo knows MMA.
Bo knows.
Petrie, what do we think?
Listen, I'm a huge Bo Nickel fan. I'm a supporter. I was so happy when he signed with the UFC. He did everything right. He went amateur, then he did a couple pro fights, then he got the contender series twice. This guy probably got offered money from PFL, Bellator, won, and he's like, no, I want to compete. We're the best. So I have so much respect for him. My only complaint with him is I just wish he would fight more. Maybe that's a selfish thing for me because I want to see him fight more. But I also think he kind of addressed this in an interview recently that he's doing enough training to build up to do all the right fights, which is a great mentality. But I also believe that you get experience by fighting in this world. You know what I mean? You can train all you want in that gym and in your room, and you got a great room with American Top Team, and they built you a gym out there in Pennsylvania. But you got to fight a little more, in my opinion, if you really want. I mean, if you're going to fight a top 5 guy next, it's going to be a completely different world. But I like him in this spot here against Paul Craig. His stand-up is really good. It's powerful. It's explosive, but he gets a little rushed with himself. Against Cody Brundage, when he wasn't at his pace, when he wasn't at his distance, he freaked out and panic wrestled, and Cody stuffed a few of his takedowns because he panic wrestled.
Yeah.
Against Val Woodburn, he landed those great shots at his own distance. He has to get used to fighting at other people's distance and still landing strikes. And Paul Craig, as much as he's been in the UFC and as long tenured he is, his stand-up is not good. His striking is not good. His chin is not great. He's got a great ground game. He's good on top. My only concern is what am I can't play Bo at -1,000. So I'm trying to figure out if it's gonna be knockout or submission. And Bo might be one of those ego guys that goes, I want to take this guy down and submit him, right? I mean, he's been submitted before, but I want to prove that I'm not afraid of the triangles. I'm not afraid of the arm bars. I'm not going to be Jamal Hill or Ankalaev. I'm going to go down and I'm going to tap this guy because that's what Bo does. So it's interesting to see how I play that prop, but it's all over Bo Nickel. We're going Bo here.
All right, co-main event, right back to you, BP. Lightweight division, number 2, Charles Oliveira, -258. 7th-ranked Michael Chandler is +210. Scheduled for 5 rounds if need be. Chandler came about as close to winning the undisputed title as any fighter ever has without winning it. He almost knocked out Oliveira. That was the first meeting back in 2021 at UFC 262. So I actually went to Chandler's private jet location yesterday in Fort Lauderdale to surprise him right as he was heading to New York City. And among the things, Kenny, that I brought up with Mr. Chandler was that first fight with Charles Oliveira. And I can't think of that many instances in UFC history. We've seen crazy comebacks like Chet Congo against Pat Barry, right? But Shane Carwin against Brock Lesnar was the only one that was front of mind for me that a fighter got that close to winning an undisputed title without winning it. Like Michael Chandler, with a different ref in there, becomes the undisputed champion that night. He was maybe one strike away. And I just wonder how that plays into this rematch, Brian. -258 for Oliveira, +210 for Chandler. Who do you love?
I hope it's in the forefront of his mind. Obviously, I don't want him to be dwelling over it, but if he would have made a couple adjustments in that first fight, in that first round, he would be champion, right? And I think he has the ability and definitely the power and explosiveness to do that again, to hurt Oliveira and to maybe put him out. I just think Charles Oliveira is on a different wavelength right now. I'm glad Chandler gave up on the McGregor fight. That's not Chandler's fault. I was one of the guys that said you should wait for the McGregor fight. I just don't know if Conor McGregor is ever going to fight again. And Chandler, that's a big fight, big payday, big opportunity. So I get it. But now he's moving on. He's laying out what he wants for the future. He wants to be the oldest champion or lightweight champion UFC history. I love that. I love the mentality. He looks to be in phenomenal shape as well. And Chandler, though, to me, at this point in his career, is a one-round fighter. He slows down. He makes mistakes later on in the fight, and that's what he did against Oliveira. Lacked focus, got caught. That's going to happen against a guy like Charles Oliveira. But Charles Oliveira just looks so sharp on the feet, on the ground. He's nasty in there. He's fighting more regularly, which I like. I feel like he's really in his prime now, which is a scary thing to say. And I see it kind of being similar. I see it being very similar to the first fight where Chandler might have a good round. And then it's going to be your classic club and sub, in my opinion, for Oliveira. I think he's going to sit him down, tap him out. A little satin tap is what we call it. I like Charles Oliveira to win by submission. That's how I'm going to play this fight as well.
KenFlo, Michael Chandler, now 38 years of age. Perhaps the time off in some part is a good thing. He has talked a little bit about patience in some of those fight-ending or potentially fight-ending situations, but easier said than done. I don't know that this is a Tiger that's going to all of a sudden change his stripes. He hasn't fought since the loss to Dustin Poirier at UFC 281. That was November 2022. Same building. Third time for Chandler fighting at Madison Square Garden. Problem could just be the opponent, KenFlo, though, and not the layoff, right? Charles Oliveira looked really good in losing a split to Aiemann Zahabi at UFC 300, and I agree with Petrie. Like, I think Charles Oliveira is in his fighting prime right now. Pretty widespread on the number, Kenny. Chandler and Oliveira in the co-main event.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Oliveira has a lot of skills, especially when it comes to offense, and I think he's still hungry, and I also think he's still striving to be a better fighter all the time. I think Chandler is putting in a lot of excellent work as well. He's clearly committed, but the problem with Chandler is he's going to Chandler. I mean, how do you turn off someone who is going to go kind of face first into danger? And that doesn't just happen overnight. And it's what makes him so exciting and so beloved. But to do that against someone like Oliveira, who has a lot of knives that he can throw at you, I think it's extremely risky. And I think because of that, Oliveira wins this fight. Chandler can win this fight because we have seen Oliveira hurt before, right? He doesn't have the best chin in that he does get dropped from time to time, and his defense isn't perfect, but I think it's getting better all the time. And Oliveira is just going to be too much of a problem, I think, for Chandler. Chandler's best bet is early. And then after that, I think Oliveira takes over and finishes the job.
All right, that brings us to the main event at UFC 309 for the heavyweight championship. John Jones minus 650. The number 8 ranked contender, Stipe Miocic, is plus 470. So I set it up a little bit in terms of the inactivity off the top. KenFlo, John Jones just one fight in the last 4 years and 9 months, but a dominating win over Ciryl Gane to win the undisputed heavyweight title at UFC 285. Then the torn pectoral muscle. It shall be done here November 16th under the lights at the world's most famous arena. My twin brother Jason Anik is in the chat room asking to be let in right
Let
now.
me in.
So
Let's let his hands go.
We're gonna let him in. I'm trying to get KenFlo's prediction.
Yes.
Got me.
Yeah,
Hey, there's the
brother.
grappling commentator.
Let him bang, bro.
Hey, how about June Chin from Leafwell dropping Diaz, O'Malley, Gaethje, and Elias Teodoro? I mean, what a G.
That was
You
awesome.
just messed up Theodoro's name, and she did not. We've been live for 2 hours. What do you have for us?
Hey, John bought me this. You like it, Petrie? It's green. He
I
was like,
love
oh,
it,
you
bro.
like wearing bandanas. My wife hates them. No, I just wanted to say hello, boys, but I had to just quickly say what I did last week to KenFlo. Can I do that and interrupt? you?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Do it.
Yes.
So Kenny, I don't know if you were aware, but I happen to be wearing the shirt, but PGF, Professional Grappling Federation. Flo.
Yes.
I was just part of season 7, and I just have to break it down. Brandon McCatherine, BMAC, the coaches, Hodger Gracie, Carlos Alvarado, Dean Lister. It's unbelievable. Anyway, who am I forgetting? Doesn't matter. But just so Kenny, 20 fighters. This happened to be 205. It was season 7. So 20 fighters compete on 4 different teams. 100 grand goes to the winning team. There's 30 matches a day, Monday through Thursday, 120 no-gi matches. They get into a playoff of 8 fighters, and that fighter wins 20 G's. But this guy, the slogan is everything you love about sports plus jiu-jitsu. Flo, I wish you had been there. And the only reason I came on was just to sort of share that with you. I could have done it off camera, but it was a very interesting experience. A lot of jiu-jitsu, but my mind was blown.
Dude, I love seeing the fact that jiu-jitsu is really just now in the last year or so getting the love it deserves. And people are becoming creative with the rule sets and how they're formulating this stuff. It's exactly what the sport needs. And to have legends like Hodger Gracie and all those guys, helping those fighters along is pretty sick, man. So it's great to see. I just started seeing the promotion for it, man. So that's exciting.
And anyway, I know you guys are about to pick the main event. What's up, Brian?
What's up? Who you got?
John,
You
go
got
ahead.
the main event, bro. Who you got in the main event, Jay? You saving that?
Oh, well, John, you mean in the Battle of the Legends? I didn't care about a year ago. Sorry, I don't care about it right now. I know you guys are about to hype everyone up. Didn't care about a year ago. Don't care about it now. Neither one of them is going to fight Aspinall. Neither one of them is going to fight Aspinall. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, I don't. I mean, neither one of them has fought. Like, some of these kids have gone to college, matriculated as freshmen, and graduate, and neither one of these men has really fought in that entire time. Jones for 2 minutes and Stipe not at all. So I understand part of that sentiment. We talked a little bit off the top of the show, the extent to which this fight is actually box office. We do have to let you go, but real quick, KenFlo, in terms of what he was talking about, that PGF, right? And it looks like maybe you and Dr. June Chin got hit in that medical cannabis earlier today, Jay. Anyway, so I'm just kidding. PGF, right? Like, the entire league happening in the course of a week, Kenny, the draft. Like, to me, 120 jiu-jitsu matches back to back to back, it just sounds like too much for me, right? But Kenny, I'm telling you, the PGF stuff, I think, is really, really interesting formatically, the way they set it all up, the draft. I sort of was thinking, Kenny, if you and I started a fight promotion, an MMA fight promotion, I know sometimes commissions have a hard time with guys competing multiple times in short order with cuts and MMA, concussions, tough. But it's not like jiu-jitsu injuries can't happen either, right? Imagine an MMA league that was in 10 days, potentially, the whole league, the draft, everything in 10 days.
And let me
I
just
love
get
it.
in here. There's alternates, Kenny, and no points for a draw. It's 6 points for a kill. Joint locks are 3 points.
Right.
You score points for your team. Anyway, it's just fascinating. And Flo, I was thinking about you the whole time. So, but you guys can pick the main event. I'm happy to be there, John, right behind you. Don't get me wrong. I'll be enjoying it. But Stipe Miocic, like, good luck. What? Get out of here.
I can't wait to see you guys in New York. Jason's on fire.
Unbelievable.
So Jason doesn't seem to think Stipe Miocic is as live an underdog as some others. But let us get back into this main event. And it is sort of interesting, Bri, when you think about Stipe's last 2 fights happening a very long time ago at the UFC Apex, right? And yet I feel like he's got a chance to realize some success here potentially in this matchup with the greatest of all time. So what are your thoughts, Brian Petrie, John Jones minus 650, Stipe Miocic plus 470? We need a pick.
Yeah, I mean, I get Jason's sentiment. I don't know if I would word it the way he worded it, but that's why he's the fucking best. Listen, we want Tommy Aspinall to fight John Jones. That's what we want, and then maybe Alex Pereira. But Stipe, this guy had a little bit of trouble with UFC a while ago, right? Like he didn't click with them. He thought he was getting overlooked. He thought he was getting rushed. Him and Dana didn't have a great relationship. So this is an ultimate respect for Stipe. Like, hey, it's been 3.5 years. We get it. We're putting you in this fight. We're going to respect you. You're the heavyweight GOAT, potentially. I know that's up for debate. We're going to put you against another GOAT, right? We're going to respect what you've done to get this done. But that doesn't mean that the fight's going to be bad. I think this is an interesting fight here. You like Stipe, or a lot of people are going to like Stipe at this number. I don't. I'm all over John Jones. Someone asked me a while ago, what do you think John's going to open at? I thought he was going to open at minus 800. And he might have. This might be bet down. I thought he was going to be 8-1. You're showing me 650 to 1 or 650 currently right now. I love that on John Jones. I think John Jones has done everything right for this camp. He brought in Gabe Stevenson, who is one of the, if not the best heavyweight wrestler, or currently is the best heavyweight wrestler in the world. Gordon Ryan, who is unbelievable. We were talking about jiu-jitsu. That guy is insane. I mean, I saw a video where John Jones is like, I bet you $500 I can get up from your guard. He couldn't. Like, Gordon Ryan just pinned this guy to the ground, and it's so impressive. And not to mention all of John's skills, his striking, everything. I know we've only seen a little bit of him at heavyweight. He looks a little leaner than he did against Cyril Gane. And the one thing about Stipe is we never really seen Stipe grapple too much. We've seen him anti-grapple. DC took him down and pounded him out a little bit, but that's what DC wants to do. John's going to take you down and put an elbow through your fucking head and look for a neck, right? This guy's nasty in there. And I was never a huge John Jones is the GOAT guy, right? Maybe it's Dana banging into my head for over the past couple months. But yeah, this guy is something special. And I'm all over Johnny Bones Jones here.
KenFlo, John Jones, prohibitively favored according to some minus 650. Stipe Miocic plus 470. Now is the time. We need your selection.
Woo boy. All right. So listen, I think there's a lot of question marks, as we talked about earlier in the show, about, what John Jones is going to show up, what Stipe Miocic is going to show up. One thing is clear is that John Jones is prepping very seriously for this matchup. And I think maybe there's been some other matchups where he didn't do his due diligence, right, on some of those things. And so I think he's working hard. He's putting in the work. He's staying focused. I think he's been hearing a lot of backlash from the fans, and I think he wants to make a statement. And a motivated John Jones is a dangerous John Jones. However, he's taking a guy on, and Stipe Miocic, who has knockout power. He has proven that against, some great strikers like Alistair Overeem. Yes, it happened with ground and pound. So, and so he can take people down. He can defend takedowns. He has a shit ton of experience when it comes to big fights. So all of those things are very positive signs. But at 42 years old with a long layoff, going against who I think is the GOAT, John Jones, there's a lot going against him here. And I think that, Jones is really good everywhere. I think, again, Stipe's best shot is trying to catch John Jones early. John Jones is the kind of guy, like a lot of other great and intelligent fighters, that takes time to analyze you. He wants to figure you out and then pick you apart. And it's in that first 5 to 7 minutes where you could potentially test the vulnerability of John Jones. But after that, it's going to be extremely difficult. I like John Jones here, most likely by finish. That does not take away from everything Stipe Miocic has accomplished in this sport. He's an amazing dude, an amazing fighter, and I am happy that he is going to get a very large check at the end of that night.
Yeah.
That he will. All right, our bets for UFC 309 coming up in a minute. Real quickly, Bri, any action on Jake Paul and Mike Tyson? Jake Paul minus 220, Mike Tyson plus 175. Both guys in the plus column when it comes to winning by knockout. Will you have any action on the fight?
I'm not a Jake Paul hater. I've actually respected what he's done. He's gotten better. He doesn't have to do this. You're fighting a 60-year-old man. It just sours me just a little bit. Even though it's Mike Tyson, it sours me a little bit. I saw he's making like $40 million. Tyson's making $20 million. Go get paid, boys. Get your money. That's cool. But if I had a gun to my head to pick, it'd be Jake Paul.
KenFlo, I know a lot of people are scoffing at Jake Paul fighting a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, but yet it's not as though Jake Paul is minus 1,000, right? He is 5 times less a favorite than Bo Nickel. So what do you have for us on Tyson Paul before we get back to the real matter at hand?
No, listen, I think for those that are betting this fight, I do think there's a little bit of value on Mike. No question about it. You know, you can't count him out. However, you know, just like in a lot of different sports, physicality matters or a lack thereof. And as you get older, you start to lose those gifts. Now, Mike Tyson is certainly not your typical 58-year-old either. So I think that's something to take into consideration. However, 27 versus 58, that's a huge disparity. I have to have Jake Paul as the favorite here, right? And you know, he's proven himself to be a decent boxer. And obviously he's blessed with some physicality in his own right, competed as a wrestler when he was younger, no stranger to that. He's had some good boxing matches against some decent fighters, perhaps past their prime. So I'm leaning the way of Jake Paul, but I do think there's some value for Mike Tyson, especially early in this fight, to get it done with his power.
I feel like Jake Paul's mentality is I need to get this 58-year-old out of there at all costs if there's going to be any upside to this. So Jake Paul plus 125, I think, by knockout or TKO would be the value proposition for me. All right, Place Your Bets is brought to you by johnanik.com, where you can get 15% off of all Anik and Florian podcast merchandise with promo code One More Sleep. We also have the MSG design for UFC 309. Patrick Ewing prominently featured on that one. 15% off right now at johnanik.com. All right, first we update the standings. UFC Fight Night Magny versus Prates. Team Petrie was at plus 697.07. Nice job, Bri. You had the $500 double chance on RDR to win by knockout or submission. You got that one home with a few minutes to spare, plus 500 there. And then the easy winner on Chuck Buffalo, minus 162. $500 bet pays 308.64. Another strong week. I like those bets when you threw them out there on the show. Plus 808.64 for the week. Your year to date is now north of 1,500.
Let's go.
Team Florian had a $900 two-team parlay that ended up becoming just a straight wager on Abdul Malik because Sopai didn't fight. So that one at minus 375, paid you 240. Gave $100 back on the Neil Magny flyer, plus 140 for the week. KenFlo year-to-date, minus 506.80. The deficit is $2,000. Not at all insurmountable.
Nope.
And KenFlo doesn't really care because Bitcoin is over 84.
Skyrocketing, huh?
All right, you guys get $2,000 for UFC 309 Jones versus Miocic. Brian Petrie, the floor is yours.
Great, Johnny. Hopefully you got a lot of ink in that pen here because I'm going to break this one down a lot here. So first fight of the night is going to be John Jones, and I'm going to put $2,000 on him. Keep it simple, stupid. 2K Johnny Jones. I know it's going to cash about $300, but I'm just going to keep stacking wins, baby. I don't care.
Dude, I like the approach. And last week, I was thinking as you threw out those plays, this is exactly how I would have attacked the card. Yeah, dude, 2K on Johnny Jones and call it a fucking day. We'll see how it plays out, though. KenFlo, you got $2,000 as well. I'd imagine you're going to be a little bit more sprinkly than BP, but perhaps not.
I am. I'm going to sprinkle a lot. Okay, so you know, and I do have to get fancy a little bit. So we're going to start simple. We're going to put a $250 bet on Marcus McGee.
I love the way you say it. Go on.
Yes. And then we're going to do a $750 parlay on Rufi, Silva, and Oliveira.
Okay.
And then we're going to do a $1,000 parlay on Rufi, Silva, Nickel, and Mr. Jones.
Rufi, Silva, Nickel, and Jones. So Kenny's last bet, a $1,000 pay-per-view parlay. Mauricio Rufy, Carini Silva, Bo Nickel, and John Jones.
Yeah.
Brian Petrie, great job with the heavy lifting today, my man. You can find that man's show, the MMA Takes podcast. You can find him on Twitter or X at Brian Petrie MMA. My man, enjoy the show this weekend. We will talk to you next week.
All right, boys. Enjoy New York.
Thank you,
fun
buddy.
show.
There he is, Big Gun Brian Petrie with us every week on the Anik and Florian podcast. And just like that, we got to bounce on out of here. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the live couple hours today. Thank you to our guests, Ray Longo, Aiemann Zahabi, Dr. June Chin. That man right there, Brian Petrie. Our producer is Cody Merrow, putting it all together. Thank you, Code Blue. Don't forget, remember the show on the Anik and Florian podcast YouTube channel. Bilal Muhammad and Jason Anik coming up live on Thursday. KenFlorian.com is worth a click as well, and JohnAnik.com for all of your merchandise needs. We are right back with you next Wednesday. Make a note, not Monday the 18th. We'll be with you Wednesday, November 20th, live at 11 a.m. Eastern. We will recap UFC 309. With that, for KenFlo, I'm John Anik. Thank you all for watching, for listening. Tell your friends, tell your mom. Enjoy UFC 309. We will see you on pay-per-view. Until then, yo later.